The four-star general hit the supermarket floor like a felled oak, metals scattering across polished tile, the metallic clatter cutting through the hum of muzak and shopping carts. Shoppers backed away, phones raised, nobody moving. Then she appeared, scrubs stained from a double shift, dark circles carved under her eyes like war paint. The woman dropped to her knees without hesitation, hands already positioned over his chest, and someone in the crowd whispered what would change everything. "Isn't she just a nurse?" Before we dive in, if you want to see how far justice can travel, how one moment can shatter years of silence, stay with me until the very end of this story. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see just how far these words can reach. The fluorescent lights of Morrison's marketplace buzzed with their usual afternoon indifference, casting everything in that peculiar grocery store glow that made fresh produce look slightly plastic, and exhausted people look slightly dead. Lieutenant General Raymond Bishop, 4 stars retired, 72 years old, backbone still parade ground straight, pushed his cart past the cereal aisle with the same methodical precision he'd once used to plan amphibious assaults. He didn't need much. Never did. Bachelor life after Martha died had reduced his requirements to the essentials: coffee, eggs, that particular brand of wheat bread that didn't upset his system, and the sugar-free jam his cardiologist pretended he didn't know about. The tightness started near the canned goods. Bishop paused, one hand resting on the cart handle, the other moving almost unconsciously to his chest. Just indigestion, probably. That sandwich at lunch had been questionable. He took a breath, shallow, unsatisfying, and continued forward. By the time he reached the dairy section, sweat had begun to bead along his collar. The pain arrived like an interrogator, sudden, professional, designed to break you. It wrapped around his chest and squeezed, a vice with no interest in negotiation. Bishop's knees buckled, his cart rolled forward, abandoned, and he went down hard beside the refrigerated milk cases, his body crumpling with a sound that made 3 people gasp and a dozen more freeze. His medals, he wore them sometimes, stupidly sentimental, on his old service jacket when running errands because it reminded him of who he'd been before civilian life had softened him, scattered across the floor. Bronze stars and campaign ribbons glittered under the fluorescence like dropped treasure. For 5 eternal seconds, nobody moved. A teenage stock clerk stared, mouth open. A mother pulled her child closer. An elderly man started to step forward, then stopped, uncertain. Phones appeared. Of course phones appeared. Everyone's first instinct: document, don't intervene. Then Maya Cross came around the corner. She looked like hell. 36 hours into a 72-hour week, her scrubs, teal, Riverside General Hospital stamped on the pocket, were wrinkled and coffee-stained. Her black hair was pulled back in a bun that had started neat at 6 a.m. and had given up all pretense by 3 p.m. The dark circles under her eyes were so pronounced she'd stopped bothering with concealer weeks ago. She'd come in for milk and coffee. Simple errand. In and out. She had exactly 45 minutes before she had to pick up her daughter from school, and then it was back home to sleep for maybe 4 hours before the next night shift started. But the moment she saw the man on the floor, something older than exhaustion took over. Maya's cart hit the end cap display as she abandoned it, sending travel-sized shampoo bottles scattering. She was on her knees beside Bishop before the bottles stopped rolling, her trained eyes scanning skin color, breathing pattern, chest movement, in the 2 seconds it took to reach him. "Call 911, she barked, not looking up, her voice carrying that particular tone of command that people either obeyed or regretted ignoring. Now. A woman in yoga pants fumbled for her phone. Bishop's eyes found Maya's, wide with confusion and the particular terror of a man who'd faced enemy fire without flinching but couldn't fight this invisible enemy crushing his chest. "I've got you," Maya said, her hands already checking his pulse, her face close to his. "Stay with me, Marine." The words came out automatically, muscle memory from a life she'd left behind, or tried to. She positioned her hands on his sternum, locked her elbows, and began compressions. 1, 2, 3. The counting came automatically, that rhythm she'd performed in dusty field hospitals where the wounded came in pieces and the generator kept cutting out. 4, 5, 6. "Ma'am, you can't—" A store manager materialized beside her. Young guy with a name tag that read Derek, assistant manager, his face flushed with the particular panic of someone worried about liability. Back off, Maya said, not breaking rhythm. 15, 16, 17. We have protocol. You need to wait for... He'll be dead before they get here. Move. 28, 29, 30. She tilted Bishop's head, checked his airway, and gave 2 rescue breaths. His chest rose and fell. She immediately resumed compressions. The crowd had grown. At least 20 people now, forming a loose circle, phones raised like electronic torches. Maya could feel their stares, hear their whispers. Is she even a doctor? Just a nurse doing CPR. Oh my God. Someone should stop her. What if she makes it worse? Maya blocked it out. She'd learned that skill in Kandahar, where you couldn't afford to hear the screaming or you'd never get the bleeder tied off. 1, 2, 3. Focus on the count. 4, 5, 6. Tune out everything else. Bishop's lips were turning blue. Come on, Maya muttered. Don't you dare quit on me. 15, 16. You're not done yet. 21, 22. The paramedics arrived at minute 4. She'd been counting, always counting, and for a brief moment Maya felt the wash of relief that came with reinforcements. 2 of them, a man and a woman, both moving fast with practiced efficiency. Step back, ma'am, the male paramedic said, already unloading equipment. Maya didn't step back. She completed the compression cycle, 28, 29, 30, before smoothly transitioning aside. Male, approximately 70, sudden collapse. No pulse when I arrived. Been doing CPR for 4 minutes, 2 breath cycles, compressions at 100 per minute. The female paramedic blinked, then nodded sharply, recognition flickering across her face. That wasn't civilian speak. That was the handoff language of someone who'd done this in the field. They got the AED on Bishop within 30 seconds. The mechanical voice instructed everyone to stand clear. Maya backed up 2 steps, hands still held ready, watching as the machine analyzed rhythm. Shock advised, the AED announced in its calm, artificial voice. The jolt made Bishop's body arch. The paramedics checked, still no pulse. They resumed compression, swapped positions, worked with the kind of choreographed urgency that Maya recognized bone deep because she'd been part of that dance once. In places where the wounded kept coming and the only music was helicopter rotors and distant explosions. The second shock brought him back. Bishop gasped, a horrible, rattling sound, and his eyes fluttered open. Pulse thready but present. The paramedics moved immediately to secure an airway, get a line in, prepare for transport. Ma'am, you probably saved his life, the female paramedic said, glancing up at Maya. Where'd you... But Maya was already backing away, melting into the crowd. She didn't want thanks, didn't want questions, definitely didn't want her face on the dozen phone videos that were probably already uploading to social media with captions like, Nurse saves man's life in supermarket, or dramatic rescue at Morrison's marketplace. She retrieved her cart, dented now from hitting the display, and moved quickly toward the checkout lanes. Her hands were shaking slightly, adrenaline finally catching up with her. She grabbed a bottle of water from a cooler, drank half of it in 3 gulps. The checkout clerk, a girl who couldn't be older than 19, stared at Maya with wide eyes. Oh my God, that was incredible. Just another day, Maya said quietly, swiping her card. It wasn't, though. It was never just another day when you brought someone back from the edge. The high would last maybe an hour, then the crash would hit, and she'd spend the rest of the evening replaying every moment, wondering if she'd done something wrong, questioning every compression. She grabbed her bags and headed for the exit. Behind her, she could hear the murmur of the crowd, the crackle of the paramedics' radio, the store manager's voice raised in questions nobody was answering. Maya pushed through the automatic doors into the parking lot, afternoon sun hitting her face like a slap. She loaded her groceries into her 12-year-old Honda Civic, climbed into the driver's seat, and sat there for a moment, forehead resting against the steering wheel. Her phone said 3:47 p.m. She had 13 minutes to get to Oakmont Elementary. Maya started the car and pulled out of the parking space. In her rearview mirror, she could see the ambulance, lights flashing, as they loaded Bishop onto a stretcher. She didn't look back again. At Riverside General Hospital, 4th floor administration, Director of Nursing Patricia Hammond was having the kind of day where every problem seemed designed specifically to test her patience. Budget shortfalls, staffing complaints, and now this email from HR about someone who'd submitted yet another request for a schedule adjustment. Maya Cross. Again. Patricia pulled up the file, lips pursing. Maya had been with Riverside for 3 years, transferred from the VA system, excellent clinical record, no disciplinary issues. But the schedule requests were constant, every month, like clockwork. Can't work Tuesdays, need to leave by 7, can't do double shifts on weekends. Patricia understood, single mother, young daughter, no support system. But understanding didn't change the fact that the night shift was chronically understaffed and Maya's restrictions made scheduling a nightmare. She drafted a reply. Brief? Professional. The answer was no. Patricia sent it, then moved on to the next problem. There were always more problems. Maya picked up her daughter at 3:59 p.m., sliding into the pickup lane with 1 minute to spare. Lily came bouncing out, 9 years old, backpack bigger than she was, talking before she even reached the car. Mom! Mom! Guess what happened in science today? Mr. Peterson brought in this gross thing that he said was a cow's eyeball, but Emma said it was probably fake because… Mom? Maya smiled, the exhaustion retreating slightly. I'm listening, baby. Get in. Lily scrambled into the back seat, still talking, and Maya pulled away from the school. The story about the maybe fake cow eyeball morphed into a discussion of the upcoming school talent show, which led to a description of what Lily's friend Sophie was planning to do, which somehow circled back to whether they could get a dog. We've talked about this, Maya said gently. I know. We're not home enough, and it's expensive, and we live in an apartment. Lily sighed dramatically. But what if we got a really small dog, like a Chihuahua? They don't need much space. They need consistency and time, which we don't have right now. When will we have it? That was the question, wasn't it? Maya turned onto their street, a neighborhood that had been nice once before the factory closed and half the businesses on Main Street shut down. Now it was just tired. Functioning, but tired. Soon, Maya said, because that was the only answer she had. Their apartment was on the second floor of a converted house. 2 bedrooms, kitchen barely big enough to turn around in, bathroom with water pressure that was more suggestion than reality. But it was theirs, and it was clean, and the landlord didn't ask too many questions when Maya was occasionally late with rent. Maya unlocked the door, and Lily immediately dumped her backpack and made for the refrigerator. Homework first, Maya said. But I'm starving. Homework, then snack. Then I need you to be quiet for a few hours while I sleep. Lily made a face but complied, spreading her workbooks across the kitchen table. Maya watched for a moment, her heart doing that painful squeeze it always did when she looked at her daughter and thought about everything Lily deserved and didn't have. Piano lessons, summer camp, a house with a yard, college savings. Maya's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, expecting maybe a text from her neighbor who sometimes watched Lily when Maya's shifts ran long. Instead, it was an email from Riverside General HR. Subject, RE, schedule modification request. She opened it, read the first 3 lines, felt something cold settle in her stomach. Your request for schedule modifications has been reviewed and denied. Current staffing requirements do not permit the changes requested. Please refer to your employment contract, section 4.2, regarding shift flexibility and departmental needs. Maya read it again, then a third time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something more favorable. She'd requested Tuesday mornings off, just Tuesday mornings, because that was when Lily had her follow-up appointments with the pediatric specialist. The asthma that had sent them to the emergency room twice last year, the inhaler that needed monitoring, the treatment plan that required regular check-ins. Maya had explained all of this in her request. Apparently it didn't matter. She closed the email and set her phone down, very carefully, on the counter. Mom? You okay? Maya looked up. Lily was watching her with those dark, too knowing eyes. 9 years old and already reading her mother's stress like a weather report. I'm fine, baby. Just work stuff. You always say it's work stuff. Because it usually is. Lily frowned but returned to her homework. Maya stood in the kitchen, feeling the exhaustion creep back in, heavier now. She had 4 hours to sleep before her shift started, 4 hours to rest, to reset, to prepare for another night of 12 hours on her feet, navigating patients and doctors and the particular brand of chaos that emergency departments specialized in. 4 hours to forget about schedule requests and grocery store rescues, and the way people had looked at her, as if shocked that just a nurse could actually save a life. She checked on Lily one more time, then retreated to her bedroom, set her alarm, and lay down in her scrubs because changing felt like too much effort. Sleep came fast, the way it always did when you'd been up for 36 hours. Raymond Bishop woke up in St. Catherine's Medical Center 3 days later, which was considerably better than the alternative of not waking up at all. The hospital room was standard issue sterile, white walls, beeping monitors, that particular smell of antiseptic trying and failing to cover the underlying scent of illness. His chest hurt. Everything hurt, actually, but he was breathing, and breathing meant living, and living meant he had things to do. A cardiologist came in, Dr. Vernon Chen, efficient and serious, and explained what had happened. Myocardial infarction, widowmaker heart attack, 95% blockage in the left anterior descending artery. Someone performed CPR on you, Dr. Chen said, immediately, correctly, and continuously until paramedics arrived. That person saved your life. Without that intervention, you would have died on that floor. Bishop absorbed this. Who? We don't know. The paramedics said a woman in hospital scrubs, but she left before they could get her name. Store security is reviewing footage, but Dr. Chen shrugged. Bishop frowned. He didn't like unsolved problems, didn't like debts unpaid, and this was both. Find her, he said. Dr. Chen blinked. I'm sorry? That woman. Find her. I need to thank her. Mr. Bishop, I'm a cardiologist, not a detective. General, Bishop corrected automatically. And I'm not asking you to investigate. I'm telling you I need help contacting whoever runs Morrison's Marketplace Security. Can you do that, or do I need to make some calls myself? Dr. Chen studied him for a moment, then nodded slowly. I'll see what I can do, but right now you need to focus on recovery. You're scheduled for surgery in 2 days. Fine, but find her first. The doctor left, shaking his head slightly, and Bishop lay back against the pillows. His medals were in a plastic bag on the chair beside his bed, retrieved by someone, carefully stored. He stared at them, thinking about the woman's voice. Stay with me, Marine. Not, sir. Not, hang on. Marine, that was specific. That was personal. That was someone who'd recognized him, or recognized something in him. Bishop had spent 40 years in the Corps. He knew people, knew how to read them, how to find them, how to motivate them. This woman had saved his life, then disappeared like smoke, and something about that felt wrong. Not wrong as in suspicious. Wrong as in incomplete. He pulled out his phone. They'd returned his personal effects that morning and started making calls. Bishop had friends, lots of friends. Friends in the Riverside PD, friends in city government, friends who owed him favors from various points over the last 4 decades. By day 5 post-heart attack, he had the security footage. Morrison's Marketplace security office was small and smelled like stale coffee and the particular desperation of minimum wage management. The security chief, a nervous man named Paul Hendricks, pulled up the footage on grainy monitors that probably predated the Obama administration. There, Bishop said, pointing. Freeze it. The image paused. A woman in teal scrubs, dark hair pulled back, kneeling beside his prone form. The angle wasn't great. Most of her face was obscured, but you could see the intensity in her posture, the focused precision of her hands. Can you get a clearer shot? Hendricks toggled through different cameras. One caught her profile as she stood up after the paramedics arrived. Another showed her walking away, her face turned mostly downward. Not much to work with, Hendricks said apologetically. But I can tell you she paid with a credit card at Register 4, that's logged. Bishop leaned forward. Can you access that? Technically, yes. Legally? That's a privacy issue, sir. I mean, General, I could lose my job. What if I told you this woman saved my life and I'm trying to find her to thank her, not sue her or stalk her? Hendricks hesitated, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Bishop added quietly, "What if I told you I have connections with the corporate office of Morrison's and could make one phone call that would ensure your cooperation here was viewed very favorably?" It wasn't quite a threat. Wasn't quite a bribe. It was the kind of leverage Bishop had learned to apply during budget negotiations with Pentagon brass, gentle pressure in exactly the right spot. Hendricks typed something, frowned, typed more. "Okay. Transaction at 4:03 p.m., register 4. Credit card ending in 7392. Name on the account, Maya Cross." Bishop pulled out a notebook, actual paper, because he'd never trusted digital notes, and wrote it down. "Address?" "I can't give you—" "Paul." Bishop met his eyes. "I'm 72 years old. I had a heart attack. I'm not going to show up at this woman's door like some creep. I just want to send her a thank you note. That's it." Another hesitation. Then Hendricks wrote something on a post-it note and slid it across the desk. Bishop glanced down. 127 Parkside Avenue, apartment 2B. "Thank you," Bishop said quietly. He left the security office with a name and an address, which was more than he'd started with. But he didn't go straight to Parkside Avenue. That would be inappropriate, possibly alarming. Instead, he made another call, this one to a friend at the VA, someone who owed him a favor from way back. "I need you to run a name for me," Bishop said. "Maya Cross. Riverside area. See if she's in the system." His friend called back within 3 hours. "She's in here," the friend said. "Former Marine. Hospital corpsman, promoted to sergeant. Deployed to Kandahar, 2009 to 2011. Medical discharge following a convoy incident. IED, she took shrapnel to her left leg, some internal injuries. Honorable discharge, full benefits. Currently listed as employed at Riverside General Hospital, Emergency Department." Bishop sat very still, phone pressed to his ear. "Stay with me, Marine." Not a random turn of phrase. A recognition. She'd seen his medals, or maybe she'd just seen him, the bearing, the posture, the something you couldn't quite erase even decades after you took off the uniform. And she'd been one of them. A corpsman. The people who ran toward gunfire to drag wounded Marines out of kill zones, who performed field surgery under mortar fire, who held dying 18-year-olds and promised them they'd be okay, even when everyone knew they wouldn't be. Bishop had commanded men and women like Maya Cross, had pinned medals on them, written commendations, attended their funerals, and now one of them had saved his life in a supermarket and vanished without asking for anything in return. He stared at the post-it note with her address, thinking. Then he picked up his phone and made one more call. "Boss." Maya's shift that night was the kind of controlled chaos that emergency departments specialized in. A car accident at 11 p.m. brought in 3 patients, 1 critical, 2 stable. A domestic dispute resulted in a woman with a broken arm and a story that didn't quite match her injuries. A teenager having an asthma attack, an elderly man with chest pain who turned out to be having a panic attack. Maya moved between rooms, took vitals, started IVs, reassured terrified family members, and maintained the kind of calm efficiency that made new residents grateful and older doctors lazy because they knew Maya would catch whatever they missed. At 2 a.m., during a brief lull, she grabbed coffee in the break room and checked her phone. 17 missed calls. Maya's heart lurched. Lily. But no, these weren't from her neighbor or the school. These were from numbers she didn't recognize. And texts, too, dozens of them. She opened one at random. "OMG, are you the nurse from Morrison's? You're a hero." Another, "I saw the video. That was amazing. You saved that man's life." A third, "Channel 7 wants to interview you. Please call." Maya's coffee went cold in her hand as she scrolled through message after message, feeling something like dread settle in her stomach. Video. What video? She opened Facebook, something she rarely used anymore, and there it was, tagged by half a dozen people she barely knew. Someone had posted the security footage from Morrison's marketplace. It was grainy, the angle awkward, but it clearly showed Maya performing CPR on a man in a military jacket, medals scattered around them. The video had 47,000 views, and counting. The caption read, Hero nurse saves veteran's life at local grocery store. Share this story of everyday heroism. Maya closed the app, hands shaking slightly. She didn't want this. Didn't want the attention, the questions, the inevitable spotlight that would dig into her life and find all the parts she'd carefully kept private.
You okay? Dr. James Reeves appeared in the doorway, coffee cup in hand, looking concerned. Maya forced a smile. Fine, just a thing. The Morrisons video? He'd seen it, of course. Everyone had probably seen it by now. That was you, wasn't it? I just did CPR. Anyone could have, but they didn't. You did. Reeves sat down across from her. He was one of the good ones. Mid-40s, competent, actually listened to nurses. Maya, that was good work. You should be proud. I'm just trying to do my job. You weren't on the job. You were buying groceries. He studied her face. Why do you always do that? Do what? Minimize. Deflect. You're one of the best nurses in this department, but you act like you're invisible. Maya didn't have an answer for that. Or rather, she had too many answers and none she wanted to share. She was saved by the ER radio crackling to life. Incoming trauma, motorcycle accident, ETA 4 minutes. They both stood, coffee abandoned, and moved back into the organized chaos. So, Patricia Hammond saw the video the next morning. Her assistant showed it to her during their daily briefing, phone held out like an offering. That's one of ours, the assistant said. Maya Cross, night shift ED. Patricia watched the grainy footage, watched Maya's efficient CPR, watched her disappear into the crowd. Then she watched the view count tick higher. 47,000, 50,000, climbing. Well, Patricia said slowly, that's good publicity for the hospital. Her assistant waited, sensing there was more. Patricia handed the phone back. Let's make sure we capitalize on this. Contact our PR department. See if Maya would be willing to do an interview. Hospital scrubs, of course. Mention Riverside General prominently. This is exactly the kind of positive story we need right now. Should I ask her first? Just set it up with PR. They can coordinate. Patricia turned back to her computer. And send me her file. I want to review it. The assistant left. Patricia pulled up Maya's record again, reading more carefully this time. 3 years at Riverside. Exemplary clinical record. Multiple commendations from attending physicians. No disciplinary issues. But also constant schedule requests. Minimal overtime. Never volunteered for extra shifts. Kept to herself. Didn't participate in hospital social events. Barely interacted with administration. Patricia frowned. You couldn't build a career, a real career, by hiding in the shadows. This video was an opportunity. Maya should be embracing it, using it to network, to move up, to make herself valuable beyond just bedside nursing. Patricia drafted an email to PR, then copied Maya. Let's discuss how we can use this positive media attention to benefit both you and Riverside General. Please schedule a meeting with my office at your earliest convenience. She sent it and moved on. Maya saw the email at 8 a.m. after her shift ended. She read it twice, felt her stomach twist, and deleted it. She didn't want meetings with administration, didn't want to be a publicity opportunity. She'd saved a man's life because that's what you did when someone was dying in front of you, not because she wanted attention or career advancement. She drove home in silence, picked up Lily from her neighbor's apartment with whispered thanks, and collapsed into bed. The video kept spreading. By noon, it had hit 100,000 views. Local news picked it up, then regional. Then someone with a military connection recognized the medals on the man's jacket and identified him. Lieutenant General Raymond Bishop, USMC retired, decorated veteran, multiple combat deployments, recipient of the Silver Star. The story grew. Veteran saved by veteran. Former Marine Corpsman rescues retired general. Maya's phone wouldn't stop ringing. She turned it off. But she couldn't turn off the growing certainty that this attention was going to cost her something. In her experience, spotlights didn't illuminate. They exposed. And she had too much she couldn't afford to have exposed. Not her past. Not her struggles. Not the careful balance she'd maintained between being competent enough to keep her job and invisible enough to avoid scrutiny. That balance was crumbling. And somewhere across the city, Raymond Bishop was making plans that would shatter it completely.
Raymond Bishop made his first call at 6 a.m., still in his hospital bed, chest wrapped in monitoring wires that beeped their reassurance that his heart was still functioning. The person on the other end answered on the second ring, Colonel Marcus Webb, retired, now running veteran outreach programs across 3 counties. Ray? Jesus, I heard about the heart attack. You good? I'm alive. That's what I'm calling about. Bishop shifted slightly, wincing at the pull of IV lines. I need you to help me find someone. Former Marine, now working as a nurse. She saved my life, and I want to do something for her. There was a pause. You want me to track down a civilian? She's not just a civilian. She's one of ours. Hospital corpsman, Kandahar deployment, medical discharge. Name's Maya Cross. Webb's tone changed, sharpened with interest. What do you need? Everything you can find. Service record, current situation, family status. And Marcus? Keep it quiet. I don't want her spooked. Give me 48 hours. Bishop hung up and lay back against the pillows, thinking. The video had done its job, raised awareness, started conversations. But awareness wasn't action. Conversations weren't justice. And he had a growing suspicion that Maya Cross had disappeared for reasons that had nothing to do with humility and everything to do with necessity. People who'd served the way she had, in combat zones, in impossible situations, holding the line between life and death, they didn't just fade into the background unless something had forced them there. Bishop intended to find out what. Across the city, Maya woke to someone pounding on her apartment door. She jolted upright, heart hammering, that old combat reflex snapping her from deep sleep to full alertness in under 2 seconds. The clock read 10:47 a.m. She'd been asleep for less than 3 hours. Lily was at school. The apartment was empty except for her. The pounding continued. Maya grabbed her phone, still off, and moved to the door, checking the peephole. A man in a suit stood in the hallway, holding what looked like a business card. Behind him, she could see the silhouette of someone else, camera equipment visible. News crew. Maya stepped back from the door, pulse racing. Ms. Cross, we're from Channel 7 News. We'd love to talk to you about the rescue at Morrison's Marketplace. She didn't answer, didn't move, barely breathed. After 2 more minutes of knocking, they left. Maya waited another 10 minutes before checking the peephole again. The hallway was empty, but she could see a business card wedged into her doorframe. She didn't retrieve it. Instead, she turned her phone back on. Immediately, it started buzzing with notifications, and called her neighbor, Mrs. Chen, an elderly woman who sometimes watched Lily when Maya's schedule got complicated. Mrs. Chen, hi, it's Maya. Listen, if anyone comes asking about me, can you— Oh, honey, they already did. Yesterday evening, nice young woman with a microphone. I told her I didn't know you well. Maya closed her eyes. Thank you. Maya, what's going on? Are you in some kind of trouble? No trouble, just unwanted attention. She ended the call and stood in her small living room, feeling the walls close in. The video had been up for less than a week, and already her carefully constructed anonymity was crumbling. Next would come the deeper digging, where she worked, her background, her daughter, the reasons she'd left the Marines, the injury that still made her leg ache when storms rolled in. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from an unknown number. This is Patricia Hammond, Director of Nursing at Riverside General. We need to meet, today. 2 p.m., my office. This is not optional. Maya read it 3 times, each pass making her stomach tighten further. She texted back, I work nights. I'm sleeping during the day. The response came within seconds. This concerns your employment. Be here at 2 p.m. or we'll discuss it during your shift tonight. Your choice. Maya set the phone down very carefully and walked to her bedroom window. Outside, Riverside looked like it always did. Working-class neighborhood, cars parked along cracked streets, kids' bikes abandoned in yards. Normal. Mundane. Everything she'd worked for 3 years to maintain. She showered, dressed in clean jeans and a plain sweater, and left for Riverside General at 1:30 p.m., giving herself extra time because her hands were shaking and she didn't trust herself to drive at normal speed. The hospital loomed against the afternoon sky. 7 stories of brick and glass, the emergency department entrance marked by its perpetual parade of ambulances. Maya had walked through those doors hundreds of times. Today, Each step felt like walking toward a detonation she couldn't defuse. She took the elevator to the fourth floor, where administration lived in carpeted offices far removed from the controlled chaos of patient care. The directory pointed her to Suite 4C, Patricia Hammond, Director of Nursing. Maya knocked at exactly 2 p.m. "Come in." Patricia Hammond sat behind a desk that looked expensive, her office decorated with framed certifications and photos of hospital charity events. She was 50-something, impeccably dressed, the kind of woman who'd probably never worked a bedside shift in her life. "Miss Cross, sit." Maya sat. Patricia opened a folder. "I've been reviewing your file. 3 years at Riverside, exemplary clinical record, multiple physician commendations, but also multiple schedule change requests, minimal overtime participation, and no engagement with departmental advancement opportunities." Maya said nothing. "And now this video." Patricia turned her computer monitor so Maya could see it. The Morrisons' footage paused on a frame showing Maya's face and profile. 143,000 views, regional news coverage. You've made Riverside General look very good. I wasn't trying to make anyone look like anything. I was just doing your job. Yes, I read your statement to the paramedics." Patricia leaned back. "Here's the situation, Ms. Cross. Our PR department wants to capitalize on this positive attention. They've arranged interviews with 3 local news stations, a feature in the Riverside Chronicle, and a potential spot on a regional human interest program." Maya's chest tightened. "I don't want to do interviews. I understand you value your privacy, but this isn't really about what you want. This is about what's best for the hospital. We've had funding cuts, staffing issues, a negative inspection report last quarter. This story, your story, is exactly the kind of positive image we need. So use the footage that's already out there. We need you present. Interviews are more compelling with the actual person involved." Patricia's smile was professional, empty. "All of this would be voluntary, of course, but I should mention that your latest schedule modification request is still under review. These things can be influenced by how cooperative staff members are with hospital initiatives." The threat landed softly, wrapped in bureaucratic politeness, but Maya heard it clearly. "You're blackmailing me. I'm suggesting a mutually beneficial arrangement. You participate in some publicity that benefits Riverside, and we find ways to accommodate your scheduling needs." Patricia closed the folder. "Think about it. You have until tomorrow morning to decide." Maya stood. Her leg was aching, the old injury triggered by stress, but she kept her face neutral. "Is that all?" "One more thing." Patricia's tone shifted, became almost conversational. "I looked into your background. Marine Corps, hospital corpsman, honorable discharge. Impressive. But you don't talk about it, do you? Don't participate in veteran events, don't list it on your resume here, barely mention it to colleagues. I prefer to keep my personal life private. Or you're hiding from it." Patricia tilted her head. "People who are proud of their service usually don't bury it. Makes me wonder what else you're burying." Maya's hands clenched at her sides, but she kept her voice level. "My service record is clean. My work here is clean. Whatever you think you're implying, I'm not implying anything. I'm observing that you seem to prefer staying in the shadows, which is fine until those shadows start affecting your usefulness to this hospital." Patricia's smile returned. "Tomorrow morning, Ms. Cross. Let me know your decision." Maya left the office, walked to the elevator, and made it to her car before the shaking got bad enough that she had to sit with her head between her knees, breathing slowly, forcing down the panic that felt too much like the aftermath of convoys and explosions, and bleeding out in the dust. She'd left the Marines to escape exactly this: the scrutiny, the pressure, the feeling of being used as a symbol instead of treated as a person. And now it was happening again, in a different uniform, with different weapons. Her phone buzzed. Another unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her check. "Ms. Cross, this is Colonel Marcus Webb, United States Marine Corps, retired. I'm calling on behalf of General Raymond Bishop. He'd very much like to speak with you." Maya's breath caught. He's not looking to make this harder for you, ma'am. Quite the opposite. But he has some information you should hear, and he'd prefer to share it in person. Would you be willing to meet with him? Just a conversation, completely private, no press, no publicity. How did you get this number? The general has resources, But I promise you, this call is about gratitude, not intrusion. Maya closed her eyes. I don't need gratitude. I just did what anyone would. That's where you're wrong, Staff Sergeant. The rank hit her like a physical thing. She hadn't been called that in 5 years. Webb's voice softened. Please, just hear him out. He's at St. Catherine's recovering from surgery. Room 412. Visiting hours until 8 p.m. That's all I'm asking. The call ended before Maya could refuse. She sat in her car in the hospital parking lot. Wrong hospital, her hospital, the one that now felt like a trap, and tried to think through the exhaustion and the fear and the growing certainty that her quiet life was disintegrating. Then she started the car and drove to St. Catherine's. Room 412 was private, expensive, the kind of recovery suite that suggested either excellent insurance or personal wealth. Maya stood outside the door for a full minute before knocking. Come in. Raymond Bishop looked better than he had on the grocery store floor, but not by much. He was sitting up in bed, hospital gown replaced by a Marine Corps t-shirt that hung loose on his frame, monitors still beeping their reassurances. When he saw Maya, his expression shifted into something like relief. Staff Sergeant Cross, thank you for coming. Maya stepped inside, letting the door close behind her. It's just Maya now. I'm not. Once a Marine, always a Marine. Bishop gestured to a chair. Please, sit. She remained standing. Colonel Webb said you had information for me. Direct. I like that. Bishop studied her face. I wanted to thank you first. The doctors tell me that without immediate CPR, I would have died before the paramedics arrived. You gave me a second chance at life. You don't owe me anything. I disagree. But that's not why I asked you here. Bishop picked up a folder from his bedside table. After I woke up, I had some people look into your background. Not to invade your privacy, to understand who you are. What I found concerns me. Maya's jaw tightened. You had no right. You're correct, I didn't. I did it anyway. He opened the folder. Hospital Corpsman, 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, Kandahar Province, 2009 to 2011. 3 combat deployments, 2 Navy Achievement Medals, 1 for treating 12 wounded Marines during a coordinated ambush while under fire yourself. Medical discharge following an IED incident that left you with shrapnel in your left leg and internal injuries that ended your career. Maya's hands clenched. What's your point? My point is that you served with distinction, saved lives under impossible circumstances, and were medically retired at 26 years old. You came home to no support system. Parents deceased, no siblings, fresh divorce from a marriage that couldn't survive deployment stress. You had a 2-year-old daughter and a VA disability check that barely covered rent. You don't know. I know more than you think. Bishop's voice was gentle but unyielding. I know you took the first nursing job you could find at Riverside General 3 years ago. I know you work night shifts because childcare is cheaper and your daughter can sleep while you're gone. I know you've requested schedule modifications 17 times in 3 years and been denied 16 of them. I know you're paid $72,000 a year in a city where average rent is $1,800 a month and childcare costs another $1,000. Maya's throat was tight. How did you? I have friends, colleagues, people who owe me favors. Bishop closed the folder. And I know that as of this morning, your director of nursing is pressuring you to participate in publicity events or face professional consequences. Maya stared at him. You know about that? I made it my business to know. Bishop leaned forward slightly, wincing at the movement. Maya, I spent 40 years in the Corps. I've seen how the system treats people, uses them up, spits them out, forgets about them the moment they're no longer useful. I won't let that happen to you. I don't need rescuing. No, you need recognition. Bishop's eyes were sharp, clear. You saved my life. But more than that, you've been saving lives for years. In combat zones, in emergency rooms, in grocery stores, and nobody sees you. Nobody acknowledges what you've sacrificed or what you're still sacrificing. That ends now. I don't want attention. I just want to be left alone. I understand. But being left alone hasn't protected you, has it? That hospital is exploiting your skill while denying you basic accommodations for your daughter. Your supervisor is using your privacy as leverage, and that video, which you had no control over, has exposed you anyway. Bishop paused. You can't hide anymore. So let me help you control the narrative instead. Maya's legs felt unsteady. She finally sat, perching on the edge of the chair. What are you proposing? There's a Marine Corps ceremony next Saturday, annual recognition event at the Riverside Reserve Center. Every year we honor veterans who've made significant contributions to the community. This year, I want to honor you. No. Hear me out. I said no. I don't want a ceremony. I don't want recognition. I don't want any of this. Maya stood again, backing toward the door. I appreciate that you're grateful, General, but I just want to go back to my life. The life where your hospital uses you as a publicity prop while denying you schedule flexibility to take care of your daughter. The words stopped her. Bishop pressed on, his voice calm. They're going to use you anyway, Maya. Patricia Hammond has already scheduled those interviews. I checked. Next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. 3 different news stations. All confirmed. She didn't ask your permission. She scheduled them and plans to inform you that it's mandatory for continued employment. Maya's breath caught. That's illegal. It's coercive. There's a difference. She'll phrase it as voluntary but strongly encouraged and make it clear that refusing will result in scheduling retaliation, negative performance reviews, eventual termination for not meeting departmental expectations. Bishop's expression hardened. I've seen this playbook before. They'll squeeze you until you comply or quit. Either way, they win. So what's your plan? Some ceremony makes that go away? No, but it changes the power dynamic. Bishop leaned back, his strategist's mind clearly working. Right now, you're isolated. One nurse, no leverage, no platform. But if you're publicly honored by the Marine Corps at a formal ceremony, if your service record becomes public knowledge, if veterans across this city know your name and your story, suddenly you're not so easy to exploit. Maya shook her head. You're talking about using me as a symbol. That's exactly what I don't want. I'm talking about giving you protection. There's a difference. Bishop's voice softened. I'm not asking you to be a poster child, Maya. I'm asking you to let me acknowledge what you've done and who you are. Once that's public, Riverside General can't quietly push you around anymore. They'll have to answer to a community that sees you as a hero, not an expendable employee. I'm not a hero. You ran toward danger when everyone else ran away. You've done it multiple times in multiple countries for years. If that's not heroism, I don't know what is. Maya stood frozen, torn between the instinct to flee and the growing understanding that Bishop was right. She was already exposed, already vulnerable. Hiding hadn't worked. Maybe it was time to try something else. If I agree, she said slowly, what exactly happens at this ceremony? Bishop relaxed slightly. You attend as a guest. I give a speech acknowledging your service and your recent actions. You receive a commendation from the Marine Corps Reserve. Nothing you have to accept, just recognition. Then it's over. No press requirements, no follow-up obligations. Just one event, controlled environment, people who understand what you've been through. And that helps me how? It creates a record. It makes you visible in a way that protects rather than exposes. And it sends a message to anyone trying to exploit you that you have people watching your back. Bishop pulled out his phone, tapped something, and showed her the screen. This is the list of people who will be attending. Retired brass, active reserve officers, local veterans organizations, city council members, and the regional director of the VA. If Riverside General tries anything after this, they'll have to answer to all of them. Maya looked at the list. Impressive names, real power, the kind that actually mattered in communities like Riverside. I need to think about it. You have until Friday to decide. That's when I need to finalize the program. Bishop set his phone aside. But Maya, whatever you decide about the ceremony, I'm going to help you. I'm going to make sure that hospital treats you fairly, that your daughter gets what she needs, that your service isn't forgotten. You saved my life. That creates a bond, whether you want it or not. Maya met his eyes and saw something she hadn't expected. Genuine respect, free of pity or condescension. He wasn't looking at her as a victim to rescue or a tool to use. He was looking at her as a fellow Marine who'd earned his consideration. I'll think about it, she said again. She left before he could respond, walking back through St. Catherine's halls, feeling like the ground had shifted beneath her feet. Outside, the afternoon had turned gray. clouds rolling in with the promise of rain. Maya sat in her car and checked the time. 3:47 p.m. She needed to pick up Lily in 13 minutes. Her phone showed 7 new missed calls and a text from Patricia Hammond. Looking forward to your decision tomorrow. The first interview has been scheduled for Tuesday at 9 a.m. Please arrive at the hospital by 8:30 for wardrobe and makeup prep. Maya stared at the message, feeling something cold and hard settle in her chest. She forwarded it to Colonel Webb's number. He'd called from a saved line, with no comment. His response came immediately. Noted. General Bishop will handle it. Maya didn't know what that meant, but she drove to Oakmont Elementary anyway, picked up Lily, and went through the evening routine, homework, dinner, bedtime stories, with half her mind on automatic while the other half churned through possibilities and consequences. At 11 p.m., dressed for her shift, she walked into Riverside General's emergency department and immediately felt the difference. People were staring. Dr. Reeves nodded at her with something that looked like cautious respect. The charge nurse, Barbara Simmons, gave her a tight smile. Even the residents, who usually ignored nurses unless they needed something, watched her pass with obvious interest. Maya grabbed her assignment sheet and started her rounds, trying to ignore the whispers. That's her. The one from the video. I heard Hammond called her in today. At 1 a.m., during a lull, Barbara cornered her in the supply room. Hey, you okay? Maya restocked an IV cart, not looking up. Fine. You don't look fine. You look like you're about to punch someone. I'm just tired. Barbara lowered her voice. Hammond's planning something. I saw the interview schedule. She's got you booked for the next 2 weeks, TV spots, newspaper features, even a podcast. She told the staff meeting this morning that you'd agreed to be the face of Riverside General's commitment to excellence. Maya's hands stilled on the supplies. I haven't agreed to anything. Yeah, well, she's telling people you did, and she's positioning it like you're excited about it, grateful for the opportunity, all that corporate bullshit. Barbara paused. Maya, I don't know what happened in that meeting, but be careful. Hammond doesn't do things that don't benefit Hammond. If she's pushing this hard, there's something in it for her. Like what? Promotion, probably. The regional VP position opens up next quarter. This kind of positive press, Director of Nursing cultivates heroic staff culture. That's resume gold. Barbara's expression hardened. And she'll throw you under the bus the second it stops being useful. Maya absorbed this. Another piece clicking into place. Thanks for the heads up. Just watch your back. Barbara left, and Maya stood alone in the supply room, surrounded by sterile equipment and antiseptic smell, feeling the trap close tighter. Her shift ended at 7 a.m. Maya changed out of her scrubs, exhaustion pulling at her like gravity, and found Patricia Hammond waiting in the staff parking lot. Ms. Cross, good morning. Maya stopped walking. What are you doing here? I wanted to catch you before you left. Have you made your decision about the interviews? I haven't decided anything. Patricia's smile thinned. I'll need an answer today. The news stations are expecting confirmation. Then tell them no. Excuse me? I said no. I'm not doing interviews. I'm not being your publicity campaign. Find someone else. Maya stepped around her, heading for her car. Patricia followed. Ms. Cross, I don't think you understand the situation. I understand perfectly. You want to use me to make yourself look good for a promotion. I'm not interested. Patricia's professionalism cracked slightly. This isn't about me. This is about what's best for the hospital. No, it's about what's best for you. Maya unlocked her car. And threatening my job because I won't play along? That's called retaliation. I'm pretty sure HR would be interested in that. I haven't threatened anything. I simply pointed out that cooperation with hospital initiatives often correlates with career advancement. Save it. Maya opened her door. My answer is no. If you want to fire me for that, go ahead, but you'll have to document the real reason, and good luck making refuse to be in publicity photos sound like legitimate cause for termination. She got in her car and drove away, leaving Patricia standing in the parking lot with an expression that promised retribution. Maya made it 3 blocks before the shaking started again. She pulled over, gripped the steering wheel, and forced herself to breathe. She'd just burned a bridge she couldn't afford to burn, but she'd also drawn a line she should have drawn years ago. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her. Maya Cross? Speaking. This is Sharon Vickers, Regional Director of Veterans Affairs. General Bishop asked me to call you. I understand you're having some employment difficulties at Riverside General? Maya's exhaustion made her blunt. Why does the VA care about that? Because we have programs specifically designed to help veterans facing workplace discrimination. And because General Bishop made it very clear that helping you was a personal priority for him. Vickers paused. I've reviewed your situation. If Riverside General is using publicity requirements as leverage to coerce you into activities outside your job description, that's potentially actionable, especially if it's tied to retaliation for requesting reasonable accommodations. I can't afford a legal battle. You wouldn't be paying for it. The VA has attorneys who handle these cases pro bono for qualified veterans. And I should mention, we've had complaints about Riverside General before. This wouldn't be the first time we've had to intervene. Maya sat very still, processing this. What would intervention look like? First, we document everything. Every email, every conversation, every demand they've made. Then we file a formal complaint with the State Labor Board and the hospital's accreditation body. Most hospitals back down immediately when they realize they're facing actual oversight. And if they don't back down, then we escalate. But in my experience, hospitals like Riverside, underfunded, understaffed, already on thin ice with regulators, they fold fast when their practices get scrutinized. Vickers' tone was calm, professional. You don't have to fight this alone, Ms. Cross. That's what we're here for. Maya closed her eyes. I need to think about it. Of course. But don't think too long. The longer you wait, the more opportunity they have to build a case against you. Document everything. And call me if anything escalates. I'll be watching. The call ended. Maya sat in her parked car as morning traffic built around her, feeling like she'd stepped onto a battlefield she hadn't chosen but couldn't avoid. Friday morning arrived with Maya still undecided. She'd spent 3 days in a fog of exhaustion and anxiety, working her shifts, avoiding Patricia Hammond, and fielding increasingly urgent calls from Colonel Webb about the ceremony. Then Lily came home from school crying. Maya found her daughter in her bedroom, backpack thrown in the corner, face buried in her pillow. Baby, what happened? Kids at school saw the video. They're saying mean things. Maya sat on the bed, hand on Lily's back. What kind of things? That you're trying to be famous, that you're just showing off. Emma's mom said you probably did it for attention, and that's why you became a nurse. Lily looked up, face streaked with tears. Why are people so mean? Maya felt something break inside her chest, not from sadness, but from rage. Cold, focused rage that she'd learned to channel in combat zones. Listen to me, she said quietly. I saved that man because he was dying, and I had the training to help. That's it. Nothing more complicated. And anyone who says different doesn't understand what it means to actually help people. But they won't stop talking about it. I know. Maya pulled Lily into a hug. But we're going to handle this, I promise. After Lily fell asleep, Maya pulled out her phone and called the number Colonel Webb had given her. This is Maya Cross. Tell General Bishop I'll attend his ceremony. Webb didn't ask what changed her mind. I'll inform him. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. One condition, Maya said. No press at the ceremony itself. I'll talk to news stations after, on my terms, but the event stays private. I'll make sure of it. Maya hung up and sat in her dark apartment, feeling like she'd just committed to a path she couldn't reverse. Saturday came too fast. The Marine Corps Reserve Center stood on the edge of Riverside, a low building flying the American flag and the Marine Corps colors. Maya arrived 30 minutes early, Lily beside her in a dress they'd bought specifically for this, both of them nervous. Colonel Webb met them at the entrance. Staff Sergeant Cross, thank you for coming. It's just Maya. Not today, Webb smiled. Today you're Staff Sergeant Cross, whether you like it or not. General's orders. Inside, the ceremony hall was already filling, men and women in dress uniforms, some older veterans in jackets heavy with medals, local officials in suits. Maya recognized the mayor, 2 city council members, and the regional VA director who'd called her. And cameras. Despite her request, there were cameras. Maya's hands clenched. You said no press. These aren't press. These are official Marine Corps documentation. General Bishop insisted. Said you'd need a record of this. Webb guided her toward a row of seats near the front. Trust the process, Staff Sergeant. The ceremony began at exactly 1400 hours. Military precision in civilian space. The color guard presented flags. Someone sang the national anthem. A chaplain gave a brief invocation that Maya barely heard. Then Raymond Bishop walked to the podium. He looked better, stronger, the color back in his face, though he moved carefully. When he spoke, his voice filled the room with the kind of authority that made people straighten unconsciously. Brothers and sisters, thank you for being here. Today we honor not just service, but sacrifice. Not just duty, but dedication that continues long after the uniform comes off. He told the story of Morrison's marketplace, the collapse, the moments between life and death, the woman who appeared and refused to let him die. I didn't know who she was, Bishop said. Just a stranger in scrubs who seemed to know exactly what to do. It wasn't until later that I learned the truth. He gestured to Maya. Staff Sergeant Maya Cross, Hospital Corpsman, United States Marine Corps. Combat medic who served 3 deployments in Kandahar Province, who earned 2 Navy Achievement Medals for treating wounded Marines under fire, who was medically discharged after an IED explosion ended her active service but not her commitment to saving lives. Every eye in the room turned to Maya. She felt Lily's hand squeeze hers. Bishop continued, his voice rougher now. She didn't save my life because she wanted recognition. She saved it because that's who she is. Someone who runs toward danger when others freeze. Someone who does the right thing regardless of cost or consequence. Someone who embodies the values we claim to hold sacred. He paused, letting that sink in. And yet for 3 years she's worked at Riverside General Hospital, where she's been consistently overlooked, underpaid, and denied basic accommodations to care for her daughter. Where her skills are exploited while her needs are ignored. Where her service to this country and to her community has been treated as irrelevant background noise. Maya's breath caught. He was going off script. That ends today, Bishop said quietly. The room was absolutely silent. Because I'm not the only one watching anymore. We're all watching. He looked directly at someone in the 4th row, Patricia Hammond, who'd somehow gotten an invitation. Her face was pale. Maya Cross deserves better. From her employer, from her community, from all of us who benefit from her expertise and her dedication. Bishop turned back to the audience. Which is why I'm announcing the establishment of the Staff Sergeant Maya Cross Scholarship Fund, a full-ride educational scholarship for her daughter, funded by contributions from Marine Corps veteran organizations across this region. She won't have to choose between her daughter's future and her daughter's present anymore. Maya couldn't breathe, couldn't process what she was hearing. Bishop wasn't done. Additionally, the Veterans Affairs Office has opened a formal review of employment practices at Riverside General Hospital, specifically regarding their treatment of veteran staff members. That review will be thorough, public, and documented. Patricia Hammond stood up and walked out. The cameras captured every step. Bishop waited until the door closed behind her, then looked at Maya again. Staff Sergeant Cross, front and center. Maya's legs moved automatically, Marine Corps training overriding shock. She walked to the podium on unsteady legs, Lily following uncertainly. Bishop stepped down, and for the first time Maya saw what he was holding. A medal case. Old, worn, clearly precious. This is my silver star, Bishop said quietly, opening the case so only she could see. I received it 43 years ago for actions in a place most people have forgotten. I've carried it ever since, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of what matters. Of who matters. He lifted the medal from its case. I can't give you the actual award. Regulations prohibit that. But I can give you this one, mine, because you earned it more than I ever did. You saved lives under impossible circumstances, and you've continued saving them ever since, with no expectation of reward or recognition. Maya started to protest, but Bishop shook his head. You're going to accept this. Not because I'm ordering you, I don't have that authority anymore, but because refusing would dishonor both of us. You saved my life, Staff Sergeant. The least I can do is acknowledge yours. He placed the medal in her hands, and the weight of it, physical and symbolic, nearly broke her. The room erupted in applause. Every person standing, every veteran present saluting, and Maya stood there holding Raymond Bishop's silver star while tears she hadn't cried in 5 years finally fell. Lily wrapped her arms around Maya's waist, and Bishop stepped back, giving them space. The ceremony continued, other awards, other recognition, but Maya barely registered it. She stood holding that medal, feeling the years of invisibility and exhaustion finally acknowledged. When it ended, people approached her one by one, veterans who thanked her for her service, city officials who promised to ensure Riverside General faced consequences, parents who told her she was exactly the kind of role model their children needed. And then Patricia Hammond's assistant appeared, looking nervous, holding an envelope. "Miss Cross, this is for you, from Director Hammond." Maya opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a single sheet of paper, her termination notice, effective immediately, citing violations of hospital media policy and insubordination. The assistant whispered, "She sent it from her car, before the general's speech about the VA review. She doesn't know yet what's coming." Maya read the notice again, then looked up at the assistant. "When did she send this?" 20 minutes ago. It's already been filed with HR." Maya folded the letter carefully and tucked it into her pocket. Around her, the ceremony was winding down, veterans gathering in clusters, Lily talking excitedly to Colonel Webb about the scholarship. Raymond Bishop appeared at her elbow. "Everything all right?" Maya pulled out the termination letter and handed it to him without a word. Bishop read it, his expression darkening. Then, slowly, he smiled. "She just made this so much easier," he said quietly, and pulled out his phone. Bishop's first call went to Sharon Vickers at the VA. He stepped away from the dispersing ceremony crowd, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and controlled in that particular way that meant someone was about to have a very bad day. "Sharon, it's Ray Bishop. They just terminated her. 20 minutes before my speech about the VA review. The termination letter cites media policy violations and insubordination." Vickers' response was immediate. "Send me a photo of that letter right now. And Ray, this just became a federal case." Bishop ended the call and turned to Maya, who stood frozen, still holding his silver star, her daughter pressed against her side. "Do you have a copy of your employment contract?" Maya blinked, trying to process. "At home. Digital copy." "Get it to Sharon Vickers within the hour. Also, any emails from Hammond, any documentation of your schedule requests and their denials, any written communication about the publicity requirements." Bishop's strategist's mind was clearly working through scenarios. "How many witnesses saw you refuse the interview schedule?" "Just Hammond, in the parking lot." "She's smart enough not to put the threats in writing, but stupid enough to fire you the same day I announce a federal review." Bishop's smile was cold. "She's panicking. That's good for us." Colonel Webb appeared with Lily, who was clutching a brochure about the scholarship fund. "General, the mayor wants a word, something about the hospital board." "Tell him 5 minutes." Bishop looked at Maya. "You're not going to fight this alone. Understand?" Maya's voice came out smaller than she intended. "I just lost my job. I have a daughter, rent due in 2 weeks, no savings. You have a federal discrimination case with witnesses, documentation, and a VA director who's been waiting for an excuse to audit Riverside General for 3 years. Bishop's tone softened slightly. "And you have me. I don't abandon Marines, Maya. Not on the battlefield, not in a hospital parking lot." The mayor arrived then. Thomas Brennan, 60-something, the kind of politician who'd learned to read rooms fast, and his expression was carefully neutral. "General Bishop, hell of a speech." "Thank you, Tom. I'm also on the Riverside General Hospital Board of Directors." Brennan glanced at Maya, recognition flickering. "And I just received a very interesting phone call from our Director of Nursing, informing me that she's terminated a staff member for policy violations. She wanted me to know before it became public." "Did she mention which staff member?" Bishop asked. "She did not, but I'm assuming it's Ms. Cross here, given the timing." Brennan's expression hardened. "Patricia Hammond has been a problem for a while. The board's been looking for cause to remove her. She's abrasive, she alienates staff, and she treats the hospital like her personal kingdom. But she's careful, always documents everything, never leaves evidence of the worst behavior." "Until today," Bishop said. "Until today." Brennan looked at Maya directly. "Ms. Cross, I'm going to need you to file a formal complaint with the hospital board within 48 hours. Detail everything, the publicity coercion, the scheduling retaliation, the termination. Can you do that? Maya found her voice. Yes. Good. Because the board meets Tuesday morning and Hammond's contract is up for renewal. If we have documented cause, we can decline to renew and begin termination proceedings. He paused. But I need to be clear. This will get ugly. She'll fight back, she'll make accusations, she'll try to destroy your credibility. Are you prepared for that? Maya thought about Lily, about the scholarship that meant her daughter wouldn't have to struggle the way she had, about the letter in her pocket that represented every time she'd been dismissed and overlooked and treated as disposable. I'm prepared. Brennan nodded. Then we have work to do. The next 72 hours moved with the controlled chaos of a military operation. Maya spent Sunday compiling documentation, every email, every schedule request, every denied accommodation, every conversation she could recall with dates and witnesses. Sharon Vickers assigned a VA attorney named Michael Torres, a sharp-eyed man in his 40s who reviewed Maya's materials and immediately filed a formal complaint with the state labor board. This is textbook retaliation, Torres said during their meeting at the VA office. She denied you accommodations, then coerced you into publicity work, then fired you when you refused. Any one of those is problematic. All three together? That's a pattern. How long does this take, Marcel? Maya asked. Normally, months, but with the VA pushing it and a board member cooperating, we can expedite. Torres pulled up something on his laptop. I've already requested all of Hammond's employment files, all complaints filed against her, all disciplinary actions in her department over the last 5 years. The hospital has to provide them within 10 days or face federal sanctions. Maya absorbed this. What happens to me in the meantime? I have no income. You file for unemployment immediately. The VA can also provide emergency assistance. There's a fund for exactly this situation. You won't be rich, but you won't be homeless either. Torres closed his laptop. And Maya? Hammond made a mistake firing you the same day Bishop made his announcement. It looks retaliatory because it is retaliatory. That's going to cost her everything. Monday morning, Maya filed her formal complaint with the Riverside General Hospital Board of Directors. She detailed 3 years of denied accommodations, cited specific emails and dates, and attached the termination letter Hammond had sent from her car. The complaint ran 14 pages. By Monday afternoon, Hammond had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. By Monday evening, 3 other Riverside General nurses had filed their own complaints against Hammond, emboldened by Maya's action. Tuesday morning, Maya woke to her phone ringing at 6 a.m. Unknown number. She answered cautiously. Maya Cross, this is Jennifer Walsh from Channel 7 News. We've heard about your termination from Riverside General, and we'd like to interview you about workplace retaliation against veterans. Would you be willing to… Maya hung up. The phone rang again immediately. Different number. Ms. Cross, this is the Riverside Chronicle. We're running a story about the hospital board investigation, and… She hung up again and turned off her phone. Lily appeared in the bedroom doorway, already dressed for school. Mom, are you okay? Maya forced a smile. I'm fine, baby. Just a lot of phone calls. Is it because you got fired? The bluntness of 9-year-old honesty cut through Maya's careful composure. Yeah, it is. Are we going to be okay? Maya pulled her daughter into a hug. Yes, we're going to be fine. I promise. She didn't know if that was true, but she said it anyway because that's what parents did. Lied to their children about certainties in an uncertain world. After dropping Lily at school, Maya drove to the VA office for a meeting with Sharon Vickers. The regional director was waiting with Michael Torres and someone new, a woman in her 50s wearing a federal badge. Maya Cross, this is Special Agent Linda Ramirez from the Office of Inspector General. Vickers gestured to the seats. She's here because our investigation uncovered some additional issues at Riverside General. Ramirez didn't waste time. Ms. Cross, how much do you know about the hospital's billing practices? Maya blinked at the change in direction. I don't handle billing. I was a bedside nurse. But you have access to patient records, correct? You can see what procedures are documented versus what's actually performed? Yes, but I don't usually… We've received reports from other staff members, anonymous until now, but 3 came forward after your complaint, alleging that Riverside General has been systematically upcoding procedures to increase Medicare and Medicaid reimbursements. Ramirez pulled out a folder. Specifically, documenting higher levels of care than actually provided, billing for services never rendered, and pressuring staff to falsify records. Maya's stomach dropped. I never falsified anything. We know, your records are clean, but your complaint opened the door for other people to come forward about practices they'd witnessed but were too afraid to report. Ramirez leaned forward. This is bigger than wrongful termination now. This is fraud investigation, and Patricia Hammond's name appears on multiple billing approval documents. The room felt suddenly smaller. Maya had wanted justice for herself, accountability for the way she'd been treated. She hadn't intended to unravel an entire organization. What do you need from me? She asked quietly. Testimony. Details about the culture Hammond created, any conversations you witnessed about billing or documentation practices, any pressure you experienced to alter records. Ramirez paused. I won't lie to you. Testifying against your former employer gets complicated. There will be depositions, possibly court appearances. It's going to take time. But it's the right thing to do, Maya said. It is. But that doesn't make it easy. Maya thought about the patients she'd treated, the families she'd reassured, the system she'd believed in even when it failed her. If Riverside General was defrauding federal health care programs, that money came from somewhere. From other veterans who needed care, from elderly patients on fixed incomes, from a system already stretched too thin. I'll testify. Wednesday morning, the Riverside Chronicle ran a front-page story. Marine veteran terminated after saving General's life. Hospital faces federal investigation. The article detailed Maya's service record, her rescue of Bishop, Hammond's publicity demands, and the subsequent termination. It mentioned the VA investigation, the fraud allegations, and Hammond's administrative leave. It included quotes from Bishop, from Mayor Brennan, and from 2 of the other nurses who'd filed complaints. It did not include quotes from Maya, who'd refused all interview requests. By noon, the story had been picked up by regional outlets. By evening, it was trending on social media with the hashtag Justice for Maya Cross. Maya watched it unfold from her apartment, feeling like she was observing someone else's life. Lily was at school. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of her laptop as she scrolled through comment sections she knew she shouldn't read. Most were supportive. Some were suspicious, accusing her of attention-seeking, of exaggerating, of playing the victim. A few were vicious in ways that made her close the laptop and step away. Her phone buzzed. Bishop's number. Have you seen the news? He asked. Hard to miss it. Good. Because Hammond's attorney just released a statement claiming you violated hospital confidentiality policies by discussing patient care with unauthorized individuals, and that your termination was justified based on documented performance issues. Maya's hands clenched. That's a lie. I never discussed patient care outside proper channels, and my performance reviews were all excellent. I know. Which is why Torres is already preparing a defamation response. But Maya, this is what I warned you about. She's going to fight dirty. She's going to make accusations she can't prove, but that will stick in people's minds anyway. So what do? You keep your head down, you cooperate with the investigators, and you let us handle the legal warfare. Don't engage with the press, don't respond to social media, don't defend yourself publicly. That's what attorneys are for. Bishop paused. How are you holding up? Maya looked around her small apartment, the stack of bills on the kitchen table, Lily's backpack by the door, the uncertainty pressing in from all sides. I'm managing. That's not what I asked. She was silent for a moment. I'm scared. I did the right thing, and it's cost me everything. My job, my stability, my privacy, and I don't know if it's going to be worth it. It will be, Bishop said quietly. Not today, maybe not next week, but justice moves slowly. You just have to outlast them. After he hung up, Maya sat in her living room and let herself feel the full weight of what she'd set in motion. She'd wanted to be invisible, to protect her daughter, to survive without making waves. Instead, she'd become the center of a federal investigation, a social media controversy, and a battle she hadn't chosen but couldn't abandon. Thursday afternoon, Patricia Hammond held a press conference outside Riverside General. Maya watched it on the local news, Lily doing homework beside her. Hammond stood flanked by two attorneys, her expression carefully composed into professional concern. I want to address the recent allegations against myself and Riverside General Hospital. These claims are entirely without merit and represent a calculated attempt to damage the reputation of a dedicated healthcare institution. The reporters shouted questions. Hammond raised her hand for silence. Ms. Cross was terminated not because of any heroic actions, which we fully acknowledge and appreciate, but because of serious policy violations that created liability concerns for the hospital. Her termination was approved by HR and followed all proper procedures. Hammond's voice was steady, practiced. The additional allegations about billing practices are completely false and appear to be part of a coordinated smear campaign by disgruntled former employees. What about the federal investigation? Someone shouted. We welcome any investigation because it will prove our compliance with all regulations. Riverside General has served this community for 43 years, and we will not allow baseless accusations to undermine that legacy. Hammond looked directly at the camera. I have dedicated my career to healthcare excellence. These attacks are politically motivated and personally devastating, but I will not be intimidated into silence. The press conference ended. Maya turned off the TV, feeling sick. She's lying, Lily said quietly. Maya looked at her daughter in surprise. How do you know? Because you don't lie. And if you say she did bad things, then she did bad things. Lily's expression was fierce, protective. She's just trying to make people not believe you. Out of the mouths of children came brutal clarity. Maya's phone rang again. Torres this time. Did you see Hammond's statement? Yeah. Good. Because she just made another mistake. She claimed your termination was approved by HR and followed proper procedures. I have your termination letter right here, and there's no HR signature, no documentation of a formal review process, and no record of you being offered the chance to respond to any allegations before termination. Torres sounded almost pleased. She fired you impulsively, and now she's lying about following procedure. That's going to destroy her credibility with the board. Well, what about the billing fraud allegations? She called them baseless. Let her. The OIG doesn't announce investigations publicly unless they have substantial evidence. Hammond's denial doesn't change the fact that federal auditors are currently combing through 5 years of Riverside General's billing records. Torres paused. Maya, this is going to get worse before it gets better. Hammond's going to keep attacking you publicly. Can you handle that? Maya thought about every firefight she'd endured in Kandahar, every time she'd treated wounded Marines while mortars fell around them, every moment she'd pushed through fear because giving up wasn't an option. I can handle it. Friday morning, the hospital board met in emergency session. Maya wasn't invited. The meeting was closed to non-board members, but Michael Torres attended as her legal representative. She waited at home, trying to keep busy, failing completely. Lily was at school. The apartment was oppressively quiet. Maya cleaned the kitchen, started laundry, gave up, and just stared at her phone. At 11:47 a.m., Torres called. The board voted to terminate Patricia Hammond's contract effective immediately. Unanimous decision. They cited your complaint, the 3 additional complaints filed this week, and evidence of procedural violations in your termination. His voice carried restrained triumph. She's out, Maya. She can't hurt you anymore. Maya sat down slowly on her couch, phone pressed to her ear. What about my job? The board offered immediate reinstatement with full back pay, a formal written apology, and a guarantee that your schedule accommodations will be approved. They also offered a settlement payment to avoid litigation, $50,000 plus coverage of all legal fees. $50,000. More money than Maya had ever had at once. What did you tell them? I told them I'd discuss it with my client. But Maya, there's something else. The interim director of nursing, they appointed someone this morning, wants to meet with you privately. Her name is Dr. Rebecca Santos. She was head of the ICU, and she has a reputation for actually caring about staff welfare. She wants to discuss not just reinstatement, but a promotion. Maya's head was spinning. Promotion to what? Clinical educator. Training new nurses, developing protocols, working normal business hours. Better pay, better schedule, the kind of position that doesn't require you to choose between your daughter and your career. It was everything Maya had needed for 3 years, everything she'd been denied while Hammond used her skills and dismissed her humanity. When does she want to meet? Monday morning, if you're willing. Maya thought about Riverside General, the place that had exploited her, the staff who'd stood by while Hammond terrorized people, the system that had failed until she'd been forced to fight back. Tell her I'll think about it. Think. After Torres hung up, Maya sat in silence for a long time. The right move, the smart move, was to take the settlement, accept the promotion, and return to her life with better conditions and actual security. Hammond was gone. The investigation would continue without her. She could step back into invisibility with a clear conscience. But something about that felt wrong. She pulled out her phone and called Bishop. They offered me my job back, she said when he answered, with a promotion and settlement money. Congratulations, you earned it. Bishop's tone was measured. But you don't sound happy. I don't know if I want to go back. Not to that place, not after everything. Then don't. Maya blinked. What? You've got options now, Maya. The settlement money gives you breathing room. The publicity, whether you wanted it or not, means other hospitals know your name. You could work anywhere. Bishop paused. What do you actually want? That was the question no one had asked her in years. What she wanted, not what she needed to survive. What would make her happy, not what would keep the lights on. I want to help people without being used. I want to use my training without being treated as disposable. I want my daughter to see that standing up for yourself matters, even when it's hard. Those are good wants. Now figure out how to make them happen. After they hung up, Maya opened her laptop and started researching. VA hospitals, community health centers, veteran service organizations that hired medical staff, places that might value her experience instead of exploiting it. By the time Lily came home from school, Maya had sent out 7 applications. Mom? Lily dropped her backpack. You look different. Different how? Like you're not scared anymore. Maya pulled her daughter into a hug. I'm terrified, baby, but I'm also done running. The weekend passed in a blur of phone calls and planning. Torres pushed back on Maya's hesitation about the Riverside General offer, arguing that leaving money on the table was financially irresponsible. Bishop supported her choice, saying that accepting blood money from a corrupt system would poison whatever came next. Sharon Vickers offered another option, a consulting position with the VA, helping design better support systems for veteran healthcare workers. By Sunday evening, Maya had a decision. Monday morning, she met with Dr. Rebecca Santos in a coffee shop 2 blocks from Riverside General. Santos was mid-50s, Latina, wearing scrubs under a professional blazer, and she didn't waste time with pleasantries. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by pretending Riverside General is suddenly a perfect place to work. Patricia Hammond created a toxic culture that's going to take years to fix. Santos stirred her coffee methodically. But I'm committed to fixing it, and I need people like you, experienced, principled, willing to speak up to help me do that. Why me? Maya asked. Because you didn't have to file that complaint. You could have taken your termination, found another job, and moved on. Instead, you stood up and you exposed practices that were hurting patients and staff. That takes courage. Santos met her eyes. I want that courage on my team. Not performing it for cameras, actually using it to make things better. What would that actually look like? Clinical educator position, like Torres mentioned, but also a seat on the newly formed Staff Advocacy Committee, nurses and physicians working together to identify and address workplace issues before they escalate. You'd have real power to change policy, not just follow it. Santos pulled out a folder. Here's the formal offer. Salary is $82,000, full benefits, set schedule that accommodates your daughter, and a written guarantee that Hammond's replacement will never retaliate against you for the complaints you filed. Maya opened the folder and reviewed the contract. It was comprehensive, carefully worded, designed to protect both parties. The salary alone would change her life, allow her to move to a better apartment, build actual savings, give Lily opportunities beyond survival. But it meant returning to the place that had tried to destroy her. I need 24 hours to decide, Maya said. Santos nodded. Take 48. This is too important to rush. They parted outside the coffee shop, and Maya walked to her car feeling the weight of competing futures. Stay at Riverside and help rebuild it, or leave and let someone else fight that battle. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. This is Sarah Kim. Chief Medical Officer at Veterans Community Hospital. We received your application and would like to interview you for our Emergency Department Clinical Director position. Are you available this week? Maya stared at the message. Clinical Director, not nurse, not educator. Director. Leadership position at a hospital that specialized in veteran care, where her military experience would be valued instead of buried. She texted back, available Tuesday or Wednesday. The response came quickly. Tuesday at 2 p.m. Looking forward to meeting you. Maya sat in her car, 2 job offers in hand, and for the first time in years felt like she was choosing her future instead of just surviving it. That evening, Bishop called with news. The OIG completed their preliminary audit of Riverside General. They found evidence of systematic fraud, upcoding, phantom billing, falsified records. Hammond's signature is on approximately 40% of the questionable documents. So she's facing charges? Federal fraud charges carry significant penalties. If convicted, she's looking at prison time and financial restitution. Bishop's voice was grim. But there's more. The audit found that the fraud wasn't isolated to Hammond. Several administrators were involved, including the former CFO and 2 department heads. Riverside General is going to be gutted. Maya processed this. What happens to the hospital? Depends. If the board cooperates fully, they might survive with probation and new leadership. If they fight the findings, they could lose their Medicare certification and effectively shut down. Bishop paused. Either way, the patients will suffer. Riverside General serves a lot of low-income families who don't have other options. The weight of unintended consequences settled on Maya's shoulders. She'd wanted justice for herself. Now an entire hospital, flawed but necessary, teetered on collapse. This isn't your fault, Bishop said, reading her silence. You didn't commit fraud. You didn't create a toxic culture. You just refused to be complicit. What happens next is on the people who made those choices, not on you. Tell that to the patients who lose their local emergency department. Would you rather they keep being defrauded? Keep receiving substandard care while administrators steal from federal healthcare programs? Bishop's voice sharpened. Sometimes exposure hurts, but infection left untreated kills. You lance the wound. That's not cruelty. That's surgery. Maya knew he was right. Knowing didn't make it easier. Tuesday afternoon, she drove to Veterans Community Hospital for her interview. The facility was smaller than Riverside General, but newer, cleaner, with a visible focus on veteran-specific care. Flags lined the entrance. The lobby displayed photos of staff members in uniform. Sarah Kim met her in the administrative wing, Korean-American, early 40s. Sharp professional demeanor softened by genuine warmth. Maya Cross. Thank you for coming. Let me show you around before we talk. The tour revealed a facility that actually prioritized staff welfare, adequate break rooms, reasonable patient ratios, visible support resources. Kim introduced Maya to several nurses, all of whom spoke positively about the culture. No one seemed exhausted to the point of collapse. Back in Kim's office, they sat down to business. I'll be direct, Kim said. We need someone who understands military culture, has emergency experience, and can lead without being authoritarian. Your record suggests you're all 3. But I need to understand what happened at Riverside General, not the public version, the real version. Maya told her everything. The denied accommodations, Hammond's coercion, the termination, the federal investigation. She didn't minimize or excuse, just laid out facts. Kim listened without interrupting, then sat back. Patricia Hammond has a reputation in the hospital community. She's brilliant at operational efficiency and terrible with people. She's burned through staff at 3 different facilities. We all knew she'd eventually cross a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And you're not worried I'm litigious? Difficult? A troublemaker? You filed a legitimate complaint about documented wrongdoing. That's not being difficult, that's having standards. Kim pulled up something on her computer. The clinical director position reports directly to me. You'd oversee emergency department operations, manage a staff of 32 nurses, and help develop veteran-specific protocols. Salary is $95,000 with full benefits and a schedule you control. We need someone who will advocate for staff and patients equally. Can you do that? $95,000, almost 30% more than Riverside's offer.
Yes, Maya said. Then the job is yours if you want it. Kim extended her hand. Welcome to VCH. Maya shook her hand, feeling like she'd just stepped off a cliff and discovered she could fly. She left the hospital in a daze, called Torres from her car. I need you to decline Riverside General's offer. I'm taking a different position. Torres was quiet for a moment. The settlement money, you're walking away from $50,000. I'm walking toward something better. Your call. I'll draft the response. Next, Maya called Dr. Santos. I appreciate the offer, but I've accepted a position elsewhere. I hope you can fix Riverside General. I just can't be part of that process. Santos's disappointment was audible but professional. I understand. Good luck, Maya. You earned this. Finally, Maya called Bishop. I got a new job, clinical director at Veterans Community Hospital. Outstanding. When do you start? 2 weeks. They're expediting the hiring process. Maya paused. I feel like I should be relieved, but instead I'm just exhausted. That's normal. You've been fighting for weeks. Your body hasn't caught up to the fact that you won. Bishop's voice softened. Take a few days. Rest. Let your daughter see you smile. The battles are over, Maya. You can stand down now. But the battles weren't over. Wednesday morning, Maya woke to her phone ringing at 5 a.m. Torres, voice tight with controlled urgency. Maya, I need you to listen carefully. Patricia Hammond filed a defamation lawsuit against you this morning. She's claiming your complaints damaged her reputation and cost her employment opportunities. She's seeking $2 million in damages. Maya sat up, heart pounding. She can't do that. Everything I said was true. Truth is a defense against defamation, but you still have to prove it in court. And Hammond's attorneys are good. They've already filed motions to seal certain documents and limit discovery. Torres spoke quickly. This is a SLAP suit, strategic lawsuit against public participation. She's not trying to win. She's trying to punish you for speaking up and intimidate anyone else from filing complaints. What do I do? You fight it. The VA will provide legal support, and there are anti-SLAP statutes in this state that can get the case dismissed. But it's going to take time and it's going to be stressful. Torres paused. Maya, she's coming for you with everything she has left. Are you ready for that? Maya thought about Lily, about the new job waiting for her, about the peace she'd almost reached. Then she thought about the 3 other nurses who'd filed complaints after her, about the patients who'd been defrauded, about every person Hammond had terrorized into silence over the years. I'm ready, she said. And somewhere across the city, in an expensive attorney's office, Patricia Hammond smiled because she'd just forced Maya Cross back onto the battlefield, exactly where she wanted her. The defamation lawsuit arrived via courier at 9 a.m., a thick manila envelope that landed on Maya's kitchen table like a grenade. Lily had already left for school. Maya sat alone with her coffee and opened it, reading through 23 pages of legal language that boiled down to one message. Patricia Hammond wanted to destroy her. The complaint alleged that Maya's false and malicious statements had resulted in Hammond's termination, damage to her professional reputation, and loss of future employment opportunities. It cited the complaints Maya had filed, the statements she'd given to investigators, and even quoted from the Riverside Chronicle article, twisted into evidence of a coordinated smear campaign. $2 million. The number seemed designed to terrify rather than compensate. Maya's hands were steady as she photographed every page and sent them to Torres. Her phone rang 30 seconds later. This is aggressive even for a SLAP suit, Torres said without preamble. She filed in state court to avoid federal jurisdiction, named you individually rather than including the VA, and requested an expedited hearing. She wants to drag you into depositions and discovery before the OIG investigation concludes. Can she do that? She can try, but her attorneys made a mistake. They filed the complaint before the hospital board released their findings. That gives us ammunition. Torres was already typing, the click of keys audible. I'm filing an anti-SLAP motion today. In this state, if we can prove your statements were made in connection with a public issue and were substantially true, the case gets dismissed and Hammond has to pay your legal fees. How long does that take? 60 to 90 days for a hearing. But Maya, she's going to use that time to make your life hell. Expect subpoenas, deposition notices,
requests for every document you've ever created. She'll try to bury you in paperwork and legal fees. Maya thought about her new job starting in 2 weeks, about Lily, who was finally sleeping through the night again, about the fragile stability she'd fought so hard to build. "Let her try," Maya said quietly. "I'm not backing down." After Torres hung up, Maya sat in her kitchen and let herself feel the full weight of what Hammond had done. This wasn't just legal maneuvering, it was psychological warfare designed to exhaust and intimidate. Hammond had lost everything, so she wanted Maya to lose everything too. But Hammond had miscalculated. Maya had survived worse than lawsuits. She'd survived firefights and explosions and the kind of losses that rewired your entire understanding of fear. A woman in an expensive suit threatening her with papers couldn't compare to what she'd already endured. Her phone buzzed. "Bishop." "I heard about the lawsuit. How are you holding up?" "I'm angry," Maya said honestly. She hurt people for years, defrauded federal programs, created a culture of fear, and now she's positioning herself as the victim. That's what they always do. The people who abuse power are always shocked when there are consequences. Bishop paused. But she made another tactical error. She filed this lawsuit in public, which means everything in it becomes public record, including her claims about why she was terminated. Maya caught the implication. The fraud investigation is still sealed. Exactly. But her lawsuit opens the door for us to introduce evidence about why her termination was justified. She just gave us a platform to air everything she wanted buried. Torres mentioned an anti-slap motion. Good. That's the right play. But Maya, I want you to consider something else. A public statement. Your side of the story, in your own words, released through proper channels before Hammond's attorneys can control the narrative. Maya's instinct was to refuse, to maintain the privacy she'd fought to preserve. But Bishop was right. Silence had stopped being protection the moment that grocery store video went viral. She was already public. The question was whether she'd let Hammond define her publicly or whether she'd define herself. What would that look like? Short written statement, maybe 300 words. Facts only, no emotion. Released through the VA with Torres's approval. Something that establishes the timeline clearly. You filed legitimate complaints. You cooperated with federal investigators. Hammond retaliated by suing you. Bishop's tone was measured, strategic. It's not about winning public opinion. It's about creating a record that contradicts her victim narrative. Maya thought about it, turning the idea over in her mind like a stone worn smooth by water. Okay, I'll write something and send it to Torres. Good. And Maya? She's going to escalate before she gives up. Be prepared for that. The escalation came Thursday evening. Maya was making dinner when Lily called from her bedroom, voice tight with distress. "Mom, you need to see this." Maya found her daughter staring at her tablet, face pale. On the screen was a social media post from an account called Riverside Truth Teller. Clearly fake, clearly created for this purpose. The post showed Maya's photo alongside text that made her stomach turn. Maya Cross claims to be a hero, but the real story is that she was fired for incompetence and falsifying patient records. She's using her veteran status to avoid accountability and destroy the career of a dedicated healthcare professional. Don't believe the lies. Patricia Hammond is the real victim here. The post had been shared 47 times in 3 hours. Maya took the tablet, screenshots everything, and sent it to Torres with a message. This just appeared, same day as the lawsuit. Coordinated? His response was immediate. Absolutely coordinated. Documenting for evidence of harassment. Do not respond to it. But the damage was already spreading. By Friday morning, similar posts had appeared on multiple platforms, all from suspicious accounts created within the last week, all pushing the same narrative. Maya was a fraud, a liar, someone using her military service to manipulate public sympathy. The comment sections were brutal. I knew there was more to this story. Nobody gets fired for no reason. She probably did something terrible and is hiding behind the veteran card. Patricia Hammond dedicated her life to healthcare, and this is how she gets repaid? Maya forced herself to stop reading and focused on what she could control. She spent Friday documenting every fake account, every defamatory post, every coordinated attack. Torres added it all to their evidence file. This is actually helping our case, Torres told her during an afternoon call. It proves Hammond is engaging in witness intimidation and retaliation while claiming to be the injured party. Judges don't like this kind of behavior. It doesn't feel like it's helping. I know, but trust the process. The following Tuesday, the Riverside General Hospital Board released their findings. The report was 37 pages of dense documentation, but the conclusions were damning. Patricia Hammond had created a hostile work environment, engaged in retaliatory termination practices, and signed off on billing documents that showed evidence of fraud. The board accepted her forced resignation and terminated her contract with no severance. The report also vindicated Maya completely, stating that her complaints were substantiated by multiple witnesses and documentary evidence, and that her termination was procedurally improper and retaliatory in nature. Hammond's attorneys immediately issued a statement claiming the board report was biased and influenced by political pressure from the VA. They doubled down on the defamation lawsuit, filing an amended complaint that now sought $3 million. She's panicking, Torres said when he called to discuss the amendment. Doubling the damages doesn't make her case stronger. It makes her look desperate, and the timing is terrible for her. The board report came out 3 days after she filed her lawsuit claiming she was wrongfully terminated. Now, there's official documentation that she wasn't. So what happens next? We file our anti-SLAPP motion with the board report as supporting evidence. Then we wait for the hearing. In the meantime, you start your new job and live your life. Don't let her control your headspace. Maya started at Veterans Community Hospital on Monday morning. The first day was overwhelming in the best way. Orientation sessions, facility tours, introductions to staff members who seemed genuinely happy to meet her. Dr. Kim had assembled a strong team, and they welcomed Maya without the wariness she'd experienced at Riverside General. Her new office was small but private, with a window that looked out on the staff parking lot. Not glamorous, but it was hers. A space where she could work without constantly looking over her shoulder. By Wednesday, she was settling into the rhythm of the job, reviewing protocols, observing emergency department operations, meeting with nurse managers to understand their concerns. The work was challenging but not crushing. She had authority without being buried under it. "How's it going?" Dr. Kim asked during a check-in meeting at the end of Maya's first week. "Better than I expected. Your team is solid. They've been asking about you, whether the lawsuit affects your employment here, whether they should be worried." Kim's expression was direct. "I told them that your legal issues are separate from your job performance and that VCH stands behind you completely. But I wanted to hear from you. Is there anything you need from us? Legal support, schedule flexibility, whatever would help." Maya felt something tight in her chest loosen slightly. "Just what you're already giving me. A place where I can do my job without drama." "You've got it." Kim stood, extending her hand. "Welcome aboard, Maya, for real this time." The anti-SLAPP hearing was scheduled for late October, 6 weeks after Hammond filed her lawsuit. Torres spent those weeks building their defense, collecting affidavits from the 3 other nurses who'd filed complaints, obtaining sealed portions of the OIG fraud investigation, documenting every social media attack that originated from accounts linked to Hammond's legal team. "We're not just defending against defamation," Torres explained during a prep session. "We're proving a pattern of retaliation and witness intimidation. By the time we're done, Hammond's attorneys are going to regret filing this suit." The hearing took place in Riverside County Superior Court on a gray Thursday morning. Maya arrived with Torres, dressed in professional clothes that made her feel like she was wearing armor. Bishop was already there, sitting in the gallery with Colonel Webb and Sharon Vickers. The show of support was deliberate, visible. Hammond arrived with 3 attorneys, expensive suits, leather briefcases, the kind of legal firepower that suggested someone was funding this beyond her personal resources. She looked thinner than Maya remembered, harder, with the particular tension of someone who knew they were losing but refused to surrender. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Hammond's expression held no remorse, no uncertainty, just cold calculation. Judge Margaret Thornton entered and the room rose. She was 60-something, African-American, with a reputation for suffering no nonsense from either side. She reviewed the case file while everyone waited in silence. "Ms. Hammond," the judge said finally, "you're alleging that Ms. Cross defamed you by filing complaints with her employer and cooperating with federal investigators, is that correct?" Hammond's lead attorney stood. Yes, Your Honor. Ms. Cross made false statements that damaged our client's reputation, and I've read your complaint, counselor. What I'm asking is whether you understand that those complaints are protected activity under both state and federal law. We argue that the protection doesn't extend to false statements made with malicious intent, and Ms. Cross's attorney argues that the statements were substantially true and made in good faith. That's what we're here to determine. Judge Thornton turned to Torres. Counselor, your anti-SLAPP motion argues that Ms. Cross's statements were made in connection with a public issue and are protected speech. Present your evidence. Torres stood and methodically laid out their case. He introduced the hospital board report documenting Hammond's misconduct. He presented affidavits from 3 other nurses describing similar retaliation. He showed the court evidence of the social media attacks coordinated by accounts linked to Hammond's legal team. Then he introduced something new, sealed documents from the OIG investigation that Judge Thornton had authorized for limited disclosure. Your Honor, these documents show that Ms. Hammond signed approval forms for billing practices that federal investigators have classified as potentially fraudulent. The investigation is ongoing, but preliminary findings support every allegation Ms. Cross made in her complaints. Torres placed the documents on the evidence table. Ms. Cross didn't defame anyone. She reported criminal activity. That's not just protected speech. It's required by law for healthcare workers who receive federal funding. Hammond's attorneys objected, argued, tried to exclude the evidence. Judge Thornton listened patiently, then denied their motions. Ms. Hammond, do you wish to present evidence that Ms. Cross's statements were false? Hammond's lead attorney stood again. Your Honor, we believe that Ms. Cross acted with malice and coordinated with others to damage our client's career. That's not evidence, counselor. That's speculation. Do you have documentation that Ms. Cross's complaints were factually false? Silence. Judge Thornton waited. Counselor, we would need additional discovery to establish you've had 6 weeks and access to the same hospital board report the defense presented. If you can't demonstrate that the statements were false, you can't prove defamation. The judge closed the file in front of her. I'm granting the anti-SLAPP motion. Ms. Hammond's complaint is dismissed with prejudice. Additionally, Ms. Hammond is ordered to pay Ms. Cross's legal fees and costs. The clerk will calculate the amount. Hammond's face went white. Her attorneys immediately requested a stay, an appeal, anything to delay the inevitable. Judge Thornton denied everything. This case was frivolous from the beginning and appears to have been filed for the purpose of harassing a whistleblower. I will not allow my court to be used as a weapon against people who report wrongdoing. The judge looked directly at Hammond. Ms. Hammond, you have the right to appeal, but I strongly suggest you consider whether continuing this litigation is in your best interest. The hearing ended. Maya stood on shaking legs, Torres beside her looking quietly triumphant. Hammond walked past without looking at her, flanked by her attorneys who were already arguing in urgent whispers. She looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of consequences finally catching up. Bishop appeared at Maya's elbow. Well done. I didn't do anything. Torres did all the work. You stood your ground. That's not nothing. Bishop gestured toward the exit. There are reporters outside. You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to. Maya thought about it, then shook her head. I'll make a statement. Brief. Then I'm done with this. Outside the courthouse, 3 news crews were waiting. Maya stood on the steps with Torres beside her, the autumn wind cold against her face, and spoke clearly. Patricia Hammond filed a lawsuit designed to punish me for reporting illegal behavior. The court dismissed that lawsuit because my statements were true. I hope this sends a message to other healthcare workers who witness wrongdoing. You have a right to speak up, and you have protections when you do. That's all I have to say. The reporters shouted questions. Maya ignored them and walked to her car, Bishop and Torres flanking her like an honor guard. What happens now? Maya asked once they were away from the cameras. Now we wait for Hammond to decide whether to appeal, Torres said. But even if she does, she has to post a bond covering our legal fees. Given that she just lost her job and her reputation, I doubt she can afford it. So it's over? This part is. The OIG investigation continues, and if they find criminal fraud, Hammond will face federal charges. But your part in this is done unless you're called to testify. Torres pulled out a folder. Speaking of which, the court clerk calculated your legal fees. Hammond owes you $47,000. Maya stared at the number. That's more than I make in a year. That's what happens when you file a frivolous lawsuit. The court makes you pay for wasting everyone's time. Torres smiled. Congratulations, Maya. You just got paid for standing up for yourself. The money arrived in Maya's account 6 weeks later, after Hammond's attorneys exhausted their options to reduce or delay payment. Maya stared at her bank balance, $93,000 when combined with her settlement from the VA, and felt like she was looking at someone else's life. She used part of it to move Lily into a better school district, used more to buy a reliable car that didn't require weekly prayers to start, put the rest into savings with the kind of discipline learned from years of never having enough. The OIG investigation concluded in December. Federal prosecutors announced indictments against Patricia Hammond and 2 former Riverside General Administrators on charges of healthcare fraud, conspiracy, and false statements to federal investigators. The indictments alleged a scheme that had defrauded Medicare and Medicaid of approximately $3.2 million over 4 years. Hammond's trial was scheduled for the following spring. Maya was listed as a potential witness but hoped she wouldn't be needed. The documentary evidence was strong enough that her testimony would be supplementary at best. Riverside General survived the scandal, barely. The hospital board brought in new leadership, implemented new oversight protocols, and settled with the federal government for $5.8 million plus 5 years of monitored compliance. Dr. Rebecca Santos remained as director of nursing and slowly rebuilt the staff culture into something healthier. The 3 nurses who'd filed complaints after Maya were all still employed there, now protected by policies that Santos had fought to implement. Maya heard through the professional grapevine that morale was improving, that people felt safer speaking up, that the culture of fear Hammond had created was slowly dissolving. It wasn't perfect, but it was better. At Veterans Community Hospital, Maya settled into her role as clinical director with the kind of competence that made people forget she'd only been there 6 months. She developed new training protocols for emergency response, created mentorship programs for new nurses, and established support systems for staff dealing with PTSD or other service-related challenges. Dr. Kim nominated her for a Regional Healthcare Leadership Award. Maya declined, saying the recognition should go to someone who'd been in the field longer. Kim responded by putting Maya on the hospital's strategic planning committee, where her voice actually mattered in shaping policy. Lily thrived in her new school, made friends, joined the soccer team. The scholarship fund Bishop had established covered her education completely, removing that weight from Maya's shoulders. They moved to a 2-bedroom apartment in a complex with a playground, and for the first time in years, Maya felt like they were living instead of just surviving. February brought unexpected news. Maya received a letter from the Department of the Navy informing her that she'd been awarded the Navy and Marine Corps Commendation Medal for her actions in Kandahar, a recognition that had been lost in bureaucratic processing for years and only recently discovered during a records review. The presentation ceremony was scheduled for March at the Riverside Marine Reserve Center, the same location where Bishop had honored her nearly a year ago. "You don't have to attend if you don't want to," Colonel Webb told her when he called to coordinate. "We can mail the medal, but General Bishop thought you might appreciate having the moment properly recognized." Maya thought about the combat medic she'd been, young, scared, doing her job because people's lives depended on it. She thought about the nurse she'd become, older, scarred, still doing her job because that's who she was. "I'll be there," she said. The ceremony was smaller than the previous one, more intimate. Just Marines and their families, no press, no publicity. Maya wore her service uniform for the first time in 6 years, the fabric still fitting despite everything that had changed. Bishop pinned the medal on her chest himself, his hand steady, his expression carrying the weight of understanding that came from shared experience. "You earned this twice," he said quietly, "once in Kandahar, once in a grocery store. Most people go their whole lives without showing this kind of courage even once." Maya touched the medal, feeling the solid weight of recognition she'd stopped expecting. After the ceremony, she stood in the parking lot with Lily, who'd insisted on coming despite the early morning start. "Can I see it?" Lily asked. Maya unpinned the medal and handed it to her daughter, watching as she examined it with careful reverence. "Does this mean you're a hero?"
Lily asked. It means I did my job when it mattered most. That sounds like a hero to me. Maya pulled her daughter into a hug, this child who'd seen her mother struggle and fight and refuse to break, who'd learned resilience by watching it live daily. Her phone buzzed, text from Dr. Kim. Board meeting this afternoon moved to 3 p.m. Can you still make it? Maya texted back. I'll be there. Another buzz. This one from Torres. Hammond pleaded guilty this morning, sentencing in 60 days. Prosecutors are recommending 18 to 24 months federal prison plus restitution. Thought you'd want to know. Maya read the message twice, feeling something between satisfaction and sadness. Hammond had destroyed herself through her own choices, her own greed, her own refusal to treat people with basic decency. Justice had caught up, as it eventually did. She put her phone away and looked at her daughter, at the medal being carefully held in small hands, at the Marine Reserve Center where people who understood sacrifice gathered to honor it. Come on, Maya said. Let's go home. They drove through Riverside in Maya's new car, passing Morrison's Marketplace where this had all started, past Riverside General where she'd fought battles that had changed her life, toward the apartment that finally felt like more than just a place to sleep. Her phone rang as they pulled into the parking lot. Unknown number. Maya almost didn't answer, but something made her. Maya Cross, this is Catherine Morris from the State Board of Nursing. I'm calling because your name has been submitted for consideration for the State Healthcare Excellence Award. The nomination came from Dr. Sarah Kim at Veterans Community Hospital, with supporting letters from General Raymond Bishop, the Riverside VA office, and the Department of Defense. Would you be willing to accept if selected? Maya sat very still, processing. State award. Recognition, not for one moment, but for sustained excellence, for the career she'd built despite every obstacle. Can I think about it? Of course. We need an answer by Friday. I should mention, the award comes with a $10,000 grant to support continued professional development. And Maya, I read your file. What you've accomplished is remarkable. I hope you'll accept. The call ended. Maya sat in her parked car, Lily already unbuckling to run inside, sunshine streaming through the windshield. 1 year ago, she'd been invisible, exploited, trapped in a life that ground her down daily. She'd saved a man's life not for recognition, but because that's what you did when someone needed help. And that single act of compassion, combined with her refusal to be intimidated into silence, had unraveled corruption, protected other victims, and rebuilt her entire existence into something she'd stopped believing was possible. Mom? Lily called from outside the car. Are you coming? Maya grabbed her medal and her phone and stepped out into the afternoon light, ready for whatever came next. But that night, after Lily was asleep, Maya's phone buzzed with an email that made her blood run cold. The sender was unfamiliar, but the subject line was clear. You should have stayed quiet. She opened it against her better judgment. Inside was a single attachment, a photograph taken from outside her new apartment building, showing her and Lily entering their home. No message, no threat. Just the image and the implication it carried. Maya's hands went steady with the particular calm that came from combat training. She forwarded the email to Torres, to the Riverside PD, to Bishop's private number. Then she walked to her window and looked out at the parking lot, searching the shadows for whoever had just declared that this war wasn't over after all. Maya stood at her window for exactly 90 seconds, scanning the parking lot with the methodical precision she'd learned in threat assessment training. No suspicious vehicles, no movement in the shadows. Whoever had taken that photograph was either gone or skilled enough to remain invisible. She pulled the curtains closed and moved away from the window, phone already dialing. Bishop answered on the first ring. I got your forward. Stay away from the windows and lock your doors. I'm sending someone. I need to call the police. Already done. Riverside PD is dispatching a unit to your location. Colonel Webb is 10 minutes out. Bishop's voice carried the particular calm of someone managing a crisis. Maya, this is escalation. Hammond's going to prison and she's lashing out. We anticipated this. You anticipated someone stalking my daughter? I anticipated Hammond or her associates trying to intimidate you before sentencing. That's why I've had people monitoring your building for the last month. Maya's breath caught. What?
Veterans from my network, rotating shifts, watching for exactly this kind of threat. They're how we got the photograph traced so quickly. One of them spotted the vehicle taking pictures 3 hours ago and documented the license plate. Bishop paused. It's registered to Derek Hammond, Patricia's brother. The name meant nothing to Maya, but the implication was clear. Hammond had sent family to do what she couldn't do herself. Where is he now? Unknown, but the plate number is with the police and my people are canvassing the area. He won't get near you again. A knock on the door made Maya jump. She checked the peephole. Colonel Webb, exactly as promised, wearing civilian clothes but carrying himself with unmistakable military bearing. She let him in. He did a quick sweep of the apartment, checked the locks, examined the photograph on her phone. Derek Hammond has a record, Webb said. 2 assault charges, 1 dismissed, 1 pleaded down to disorderly conduct. He runs a private investigation firm that's mostly insurance fraud work, but he's been known to cross ethical lines. He looked at Maya directly. He's not military, not trained, just angry and stupid. That makes him unpredictable, but not particularly dangerous if we handle this right. The Riverside PD arrived 5 minutes later. 2 officers who took Maya's statement, examined the email, and promised to file a report and attempt to locate Derek Hammond for questioning. Their professionalism was reassuring, but their lack of urgency suggested this wasn't their highest priority. After they left, Webb stayed, positioning himself in Maya's living room like a security detail. You don't need to, Maya started. I'm staying until we locate Derek Hammond. General's orders. Webb settled into the chair with the sight line to both the door and the window. Get some sleep. I'll wake you if anything develops. Maya checked on Lily, still sleeping, blissfully unaware, then retreated to her bedroom. Sleep was impossible. She lay in the dark, listening to every sound, her old combat instincts fully engaged. At 3 a.m., her phone vibrated with a text from Bishop. Derek Hammond located and detained by RPD, questioned and released with warning. Restraining order filed on your behalf. He won't approach again. Maya read it twice, feeling the adrenaline finally start to drain. She got up, found Webb still awake in her living room. They found him, she said. I know, Bishop copied me. Webb stood, stretching. He'll probably lawyer up and claim he was just trying to talk to you about his sister. The photograph and email make that story weak, but without an explicit threat, the police can't hold him. The restraining order gives us legal protection if he tries again. And if he ignores the restraining order, then he goes to jail and Patricia Hammond's legal situation gets significantly worse. Witness intimidation and conspiracy charges on top of fraud. Webb moved toward the door. Get some rest. I'll have someone watching the building for the next week, just in case. After he left, Maya finally slept. But it was the shallow, alert sleep of someone expecting trouble. Morning came too early. Maya got Lily ready for school without mentioning the previous night's events, maintaining the illusion of normalcy that parents weaponize to protect their children from adult fears. You okay, Mom? Lily asked over breakfast. You look tired. Just didn't sleep well. I'll be fine. At Veterans Community Hospital, Maya buried herself in work, using the familiar routine to push back against the anxiety that threatened to overwhelm her. She had a staff meeting at 9, training session at 11, budget review at 2. Each task demanded focus that left no room for dwelling on photographs and threats. Dr. Kim noticed anyway. She appeared in Maya's office during lunch, closing the door behind her. Bishop called me this morning, told me about the harassment. Kim sat down without asking permission. How are you really doing? Maya set down her sandwich. I'm fine. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. Maya met Kim's eyes. I can't fall apart, so I'm not falling apart. I have a daughter to protect and a job to do. Everything else is just noise. The noise includes someone stalking you. The noise includes someone who's already been caught and warned off. The situation is handled. Maya's voice was firm. I appreciate your concern, but I need to work. That's how I cope. Kim studied her for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but if that changes, if you need support or time off or anything else, you tell me. Understood? Understood. After Kim left, Maya allowed herself exactly 5 minutes to feel the fear she'd been suppressing. Then she compartmentalized it, locked it away in the mental box where she kept all the things she couldn't afford to process during operational hours, and returned to work. The week passed without incident. Derek Hammond didn't approach, didn't call, didn't send any more photographs. The restraining order sat in Maya's files like a loaded weapon she hoped never to use. Bishop's security detail maintained their watch, invisible but present. Friday afternoon brought a call from Torres. Hammond's sentencing hearing is scheduled for next Thursday. Prosecutors are holding firm on their recommendation, 24 months federal prison plus full restitution. Her attorneys tried to argue for probation based on her years of service to healthcare, but the judge wasn't interested. Do I need to be there? No. You're on the witness list if needed, but the documentary evidence is strong enough. This is just formality at this point. Hammond pleaded guilty, so there's no trial, just sentencing. Torres paused. But if you want to be there to see it through, you're welcome to attend. Maya thought about it. Part of her wanted to witness Hammond face consequences. Part of her wanted to never think about the woman again. I'll decide later. Thursday morning arrived cold and bright. Maya woke early, made Lily breakfast, and drove her to school with the particular awareness of someone who'd been threatened and refused to change her routine because changing meant letting fear win. She'd decided to attend the sentencing. Not for revenge. She'd learned in combat that revenge was a luxury soldiers couldn't afford, but for closure. To see this chapter end definitively before moving forward. The federal courthouse in downtown Riverside was different from the state court where the anti-SLAPP hearing had been held. Larger, more imposing, designed to remind everyone who entered that federal justice operated on a different scale. Maya arrived 30 minutes early and found Bishop already there, waiting in the gallery with Colonel Webb and Sharon Vickers. You didn't have to come, Maya said. Yes, I did. Bishop's expression was set. I want Hammond to see that you're not alone, that you never were. The courtroom filled slowly. Journalists, Riverside General staff members, some of the nurses who'd filed complaints. Maya recognized Dr. Rebecca Santos sitting near the back, her presence a quiet statement of solidarity. At exactly 10 a.m., Patricia Hammond was led in by federal marshals. She wore a conservative suit, her hair pulled back severely, her expression carefully neutral. But Maya could see the tension in her shoulders, the way her hands clenched and unclenched. Their eyes met across the courtroom. Hammond's gaze held no remorse, just cold assessment, calculating even now what advantage might be salvaged from disaster. Judge Richard Morrison entered and the room rose. He was 60-something with the particular gravity that came from decades of weighing human failures against societal needs. The proceedings began with the prosecution outlining Hammond's crimes. Special attention was paid to the scope of the fraud. $3.2 million stolen from federal healthcare programs over 4 years, money that should have gone to patient care instead diverted to inflate Riverside General's profit margins and Hammond's performance bonuses. This wasn't an isolated incident or a momentary lapse in judgment, the prosecutor said. This was systematic theft from programs designed to help vulnerable populations. Miss Hammond held a position of trust and she abused it repeatedly for personal gain. Hammond's attorney countered with character witnesses, colleagues who testified to her dedication, her long hours, her commitment to healthcare. They painted a picture of someone who'd made mistakes under pressure, who deserved a second chance. Judge Morrison listened without visible reaction. Then came the victim impact statements. 2 patients whose care had been affected by the fraud spoke about delayed treatments and denied services. A Medicare administrator testified about the broader impact on program integrity. Finally, the judge looked at Hammond directly. Ms. Hammond, do you wish to address the court before sentencing? Hammond stood, her voice steady. Your Honor, I take full responsibility for my actions. I made serious errors in judgment, and I deeply regret the harm caused. I dedicated 30 years to healthcare, and I allowed financial pressures to compromise my ethics. I asked the court for mercy and the opportunity to make amends. It was a competent statement, appropriately contrite. It also felt completely empty. Words chosen by attorneys delivered without conviction. Judge Morrison was unimpressed. Ms. Hammond, you held a position of significant authority in a hospital that serves one of the most economically disadvantaged communities in this region. The people who depend on Riverside General are among the most vulnerable in our healthcare system, and you stole from them, not once, Not accidentally, but repeatedly and deliberately over years. He paused, letting that sink in. Your attorney argues that you deserve leniency based on your years of service, but those same years gave you the knowledge and authority to commit these crimes effectively. You knew exactly what you were doing, and you did it anyway. The judge consulted his notes. Additionally, the court has been made aware of your attempts to intimidate witnesses, specifically Ms. Maya Cross, who reported your misconduct and subsequently faced retaliation, defamation lawsuits, and harassment through your family members. Hammond's face went pale. That behavior demonstrates not remorse but continued contempt for accountability. You haven't accepted responsibility, Ms. Hammond. You've simply been caught. Judge Morrison's expression hardened. Therefore, the court sentences you to 30 months in federal prison, followed by 3 years supervised release. You will pay full restitution of $3.2 million to the affected federal programs. You will surrender your nursing license permanently, and you are prohibited from working in any healthcare-related field for the remainder of your professional life. 30 months. More than the prosecution had requested. Hammond swayed slightly, her attorney catching her arm. The marshals moved forward, and Maya watched as the woman who'd tried to destroy her was led away in handcuffs, her face finally showing the fear she'd spent so long inflicting on others. The courtroom emptied slowly. Maya remained seated, feeling the weight of finality settle over her. Bishop appeared beside her. "How do you feel?" "Relieved, exhausted, sad." Maya stood, gathering her things. She did this to herself, but it's still hard to watch someone's life unravel. "That's because you have empathy." "She never did." Bishop guided her toward the exit. "Come on, let's get you out of here." Outside, reporters were waiting, but Maya had learned to navigate them efficiently. Brief statement, no elaboration, then departure before follow-up questions could begin. "Justice was served today," she said simply. "I hope this sends a message that healthcare fraud and workplace retaliation have consequences. That's all." She left before they could ask more, Bishop and Webb flanking her like an honor guard. In her car, Maya sat for a moment before starting the engine. Her phone showed several missed calls, Dr. Kim checking in, Torres wanting to debrief, several messages from colleagues offering support, and one text from Catherine Morris at the State Board of Nursing. "Congratulations on the sentencing outcome. Also, you've been selected for the State Healthcare Excellence Award. Ceremony is May 15th. Please confirm your acceptance by Friday." Maya stared at the message, feeling like she was reading about someone else's life. She called the number back. Morris answered immediately. "Ms. Cross, I assume you saw my text." "I did. I'm honored, but I need to understand what accepting means. Is this another publicity situation? Because I've had enough of those." Morris laughed, a genuine sound. "No cameras unless you specifically approve them. This is a professional recognition event. You, about 200 healthcare workers, and some boring speeches. The focus is on honoring excellence, not creating media moments." She paused. "Maya, you've earned this. What you've accomplished, both clinically and in standing up to corruption, represents exactly the kind of leadership we need in healthcare. Please say yes." Maya thought about it, weighing her instinct for privacy against the growing understanding that visibility had become protection rather than exposure. "Okay, I accept." "Excellent, I'll send you the details." After hanging up, Maya started her car and drove toward Oakmont Elementary, where Lily would be waiting. The afternoon traffic was light. The sky, that particular shade of blue that promised spring, was finally arriving. Her phone rang again. This time it was an unknown number, but something made her answer. "Maya Cross? This is Dr. Helen Castillo from the National Association of Veteran Healthcare Workers. We've been following your case, and we'd like to offer you a position on our National Advisory Board. We need voices like yours shaping policy for how the healthcare system treats veteran employees." Maya pulled into the school parking lot, phone still pressed to her ear. "I'm not a policy expert. You're someone who lived through the failures of the current system and fought to change them. That's more valuable than any academic credential." Castillo's voice was warm but firm. "The position is volunteer, meets quarterly, and would give you a platform to advocate for systemic reforms that protect veteran healthcare workers nationally. Will you consider it?" "Can I think about it?" "Of course. But Maya? We need people who understand what it's like to be overlooked and undervalued. That's you. Please don't let this opportunity pass. Lily emerged from the school building, backpack bouncing, face bright with the particular joy of a 9-year-old who'd had a good day. Maya ended the call and got out to meet her daughter, this child who'd weathered storms without breaking. How was school? Good. We did science experiments and I got picked for the talent show, and Emma invited me to her birthday party next month. Lily paused, studying Maya's face. Why do you look weird? Weird how? Like something happened, but you don't know if it's good or bad. Maya pulled her daughter into a hug. Something good happened. Several good things, actually. I'll tell you about them over dinner. They drove home through Riverside, past Morrison's Marketplace, where this had all started 11 months ago. Maya glanced at the store as they passed, remembering the man dying on the floor, the decision to act when others froze, the moment that had unraveled her entire existence and rebuilt it into something she'd stopped dreaming was possible. At home, Maya made dinner while Lily did homework, the domestic routine an anchor against the surreal nature of her changing circumstances. Over pasta, she told her daughter about the award, about the advisory board offer, about the sentencing that meant the woman who'd hurt them couldn't hurt anyone else. Lily listened with the seriousness of someone who understood that adult problems had real consequences. So you won? She asked finally. I don't know if won is the right word, but justice happened. That's better. Does this mean things will be normal now? Maya thought about what normal meant. The exhaustion of survival, the constant fear of retaliation, the invisibility she'd wrapped around herself like armor. She didn't want that normal back. Things will be different, she said. Better different, I think. That night, after Lily was asleep, Maya sat at her kitchen table with her laptop and drafted an acceptance letter for the advisory board position. She wrote about her experiences, her commitment to changing the systems that had failed her, her belief that healthcare workers deserved better protection and support. She sent it before she could second-guess herself. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in the conference hall of the Riverside Convention Center, wearing professional clothes that still felt slightly foreign, surrounded by 200 healthcare workers who'd been selected for various state excellence awards. The ceremony was exactly as Catherine Morris had promised, professional, focused on achievement rather than spectacle, boring in the best possible way. When they called her name, Maya walked to the stage with the same steady calm she'd used approaching wounded Marines under fire. The award was a crystal plaque with her name engraved below the seal of the State Board of Nursing. The $10,000 grant came as a check that felt impossibly substantial. The presenter, the state surgeon general, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, shook Maya's hand and said quietly, "Thank you for your service. Both kinds." Maya returned to her seat beside Dr. Kim, who leaned over and whispered, "How does it feel?" "Strange. Good strange." Maya set the plaque carefully beside her chair. "Like I'm watching someone else's life." "It's your life. You built this. Own it." The ceremony continued. More awards, more recognition, more stories of healthcare workers who'd gone beyond duty to serve their communities. Maya listened and felt something shift inside her, a recognition that she belonged in this room, that her struggles and her victories had earned her a place among people who understood the weight of caring for others. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Maya intended to stay briefly, make polite conversation, then leave. But people kept approaching her. Nurses who'd read about her case, administrators who wanted to discuss workplace protection policies, veteran healthcare workers who shared their own stories of discrimination and retaliation. She found herself in conversations that mattered, making connections that felt purposeful. By the time she checked her watch, 2 hours had passed, and she'd collected 17 business cards from people who wanted to collaborate on advocacy projects. Bishop found her near the exit, accompanied by Colonel Webb and Sharon Vickers. "Quite a night," he said. "I didn't expect this many people to care. They've been waiting for someone to show them it's possible to fight back and win. You're proof it can be done." Bishop handed her an envelope. "This is from the Marine Corps Scholarship Fund. They've expanded it beyond just your daughter. It's now available to children of all veteran healthcare workers in this region. They're naming it the Maya Cross Educational Fund." Maya opened the envelope and found the formal documentation.
Her daughter's name prominently featured but expanded to help dozens of families. I don't know what to say. Say you'll keep doing what you're doing. Keep speaking up. Keep refusing to be invisible. Keep showing people that standing up for yourself matters. Bishop's expression was serious. You've already changed lives, Maya, more than you know. Don't stop now. The drive home took her through downtown Riverside, past Riverside General Hospital, where lights blazed in the emergency department windows. Maya thought about the nurses working that shift, wondered if any of them felt safer now. If the changes Dr. Santos had implemented actually made a difference. She hoped so. At home, the babysitter was reading on the couch. Lily long since asleep. Maya paid her, locked the door behind her, and stood in her quiet apartment feeling the full weight of everything that had changed. 1 year ago, she'd been invisible, exploited, trapped in a life that ground her down daily. Today, she held a State Excellence Award, a board position that could shape national policy, and the knowledge that her fight had protected people beyond just herself. She checked on Lily, this child who'd learned resilience by watching it lived, who'd seen her mother face down corruption and refuse to break. Maya smoothed her daughter's hair and whispered, "We made it, baby. We actually made it." The following Monday, Maya returned to Veterans Community Hospital and found a surprise waiting in her office, a letter from the Department of Veterans Affairs signed by the secretary himself, commending her advocacy work and offering her a consulting position developing national protocols for veteran healthcare worker support. Dr. Kim appeared in her doorway. "I see you got the letter. You knew about this?" "Sharon Vickers called me last week. Wanted to make sure VCH wouldn't object to you taking on additional consulting work." Kim smiled. "I told her we'd be idiots to stand in your way. You're making us all look good." Maya set the letter down carefully. "This is too much. The award, the board position, now this? No, it's exactly enough. You spent years being told you weren't enough, that your needs didn't matter, that you should be grateful for scraps. Now people are recognizing your actual value. Stop questioning it and start accepting it." Kim was right. Maya had spent so long expecting disappointment that success felt like an error waiting to be corrected. "Okay," Maya said quietly, "I'll accept it." 3 months later, Maya sat in a conference room in Washington, D.C., surrounded by policy experts, veteran advocates, and healthcare administrators presenting her recommendations for protecting veteran employees from workplace discrimination and retaliation. She spoke about her experiences without shame, using her story as evidence for systemic failures that needed addressing. The panel listened with the kind of focused attention that suggested they actually intended to implement changes. After the presentation, a woman from the Office of Inspector General approached her. "Ms. Cross, your case has become a training example in our fraud investigation protocols. What you did, documenting everything, reporting through proper channels, cooperating with investigators, that's exactly the kind of whistleblower behavior we need to encourage." "I wasn't trying to be a whistleblower. I was just trying to get my schedule changed so I could take my daughter to her doctor appointments. And that's exactly why your story matters. You weren't looking to be a hero. You just refused to accept being treated badly. That's more powerful than any activist campaign." The woman handed Maya her card. "If you're ever interested in speaking to other potential whistleblowers about the protections available to them, we'd love to work with you." Maya took the card, added it to the growing collection in her wallet. That evening, back in her hotel room, Maya video called Lily, who was staying with Mrs. Chen for the week. "How's Washington?" Lily asked, her face filling the phone screen. "Productive. I think we actually accomplished something." "Are you famous now?" Maya laughed. "No, baby. I'm just someone who did the right thing and got lucky that people noticed." "That's not luck. That's you being brave." After the call ended, Maya sat in her hotel room and thought about bravery. What it meant, what it cost, what it earned. She'd always associated courage with combat, with running toward danger in defense of others. She'd never considered that standing up to a supervisor, filing a complaint, refusing to be silenced, that those acts required courage too. Maybe Lily was right. Maybe it hadn't been luck at all. 6 months after Hammond's sentencing, Maya received a letter from Patricia Hammond herself, sent from federal prison. She almost threw it away unopened, but curiosity won. The letter was brief, typed on prison stationery.
Ms. Cross, I'm writing to apologize. Not because my attorney advised it or because I hope for leniency, those ships have sailed, but because I spent 6 months in here thinking about the people I hurt, and you deserved better than what I gave you. I told myself I was just doing my job, managing resources, making hard decisions. I didn't see you as a person with a daughter and struggles and a life that mattered. I saw you as a scheduling problem I needed to solve efficiently. That was wrong. You were an excellent nurse who deserved support, not exploitation. I'm sorry for every accommodation I denied, every time I dismissed your concerns, and especially for trying to destroy you when you held me accountable. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what I did. And I'm sorry. Patricia Hammond. Maya read the letter twice, then filed it away. The apology didn't change anything. Hammond was still in prison. Maya's life was still rebuilt. The past remained fixed. But it offered something Maya hadn't expected, closure that came from the perpetrator's recognition rather than her own acceptance. She didn't respond to the letter. Some conversations didn't require continuation. A year after the grocery store rescue, Bishop invited Maya to speak at the annual Marine Corps recognition ceremony. She stood at the same podium where he'd honored her, looking out at a room full of veterans and their families, and told her story. Not the sanitized version. Not the version designed to make anyone comfortable. The real story. The struggle. The retaliation. The fear. The fight. And the slow, grinding victory that came from refusing to give up. I didn't set out to change anything, she concluded. I just wanted to do my job and take care of my daughter. But when I was forced to choose between accepting injustice and fighting back, I fought back. Not because I was brave, but because I didn't have another option. She paused, looking at the faces watching her. Young veterans just entering the workforce, older veterans who'd faced their own battles, families supporting them all. If there's anything I want you to take from my experience, it's this. You have more power than you think. The systems that hurt us rely on our silence. When we refuse to be silent, when we document and report and stand up for ourselves, we create change. Not instantly, not easily, but inevitably. The applause was sustained, genuine. Maya stepped down from the podium and found Lily waiting in the front row, wearing her mother's commendation medal pinned carefully to her dress. Was that okay? Maya asked. You made people cry, Lily said. The good kind of crying. They left the ceremony together, mother and daughter, walking through the parking lot toward a future that no longer felt precarious but possible. Maya's phone rang. Dr. Kim. Sorry to interrupt your evening, but I need to ask you something. The hospital board just approved a new position, Director of Veteran Services. It would oversee all veteran-specific programs at VCH, develop new initiatives, and serve as an advocate for veteran patients and staff. They want to offer it to you. Maya stopped walking. That's a promotion. A significant one. 70% administrative, 30% clinical, salary increase to $115,000. You'd have real authority to shape how we serve the veteran community. Kim paused. I know you've got the consulting work and the board positions, but this would be your home base, your platform for everything else. Will you consider it? Maya looked at Lily, at the ceremony building behind them, at the life they'd built from the wreckage of what had been. Yes, she said. I'll take it. 2 years after Raymond Bishop collapsed in Morrison's Marketplace, Maya stood in the newly opened Veteran Services Wing of Veterans Community Hospital, cutting the ribbon on a facility designed specifically to meet the needs of former military personnel navigating civilian health care. The wing included specialized mental health services, peer support groups, benefits assistance, and employment counseling. It was everything Maya had needed when she'd first left the Marines and found none of it. Bishop stood beside her, recovered from his heart surgery, still sharp at 74. You built this, he said quietly. We built this. I just provided the blueprint from experience. Don't diminish what you've accomplished. This facility will serve thousands of veterans. You created that from a grocery store floor and a refusal to stay silent. The ribbon fell away and staff members began leading tours through the new wing. Maya watched veterans walk through doors designed to welcome them, into spaces created to support them, and felt the particular satisfaction that came from turning personal pain into systemic change. That evening, at home, Maya and Lily sat at their kitchen table. A new apartment now, bigger, in a neighborhood with good schools and safe streets, affordable because Maya's salary finally matched her skills. "Mom?" Lily looked up from her homework. "I have to write an essay about someone who inspires me. Can I write about you?" Maya felt her throat tighten. "You can write about anyone you want, baby." "I want to write about you, about how you saved that general's life and then fought back when people tried to hurt you, about how you didn't give up even when things were scary." Lily's expression was serious. "You taught me that standing up for yourself matters. That's important." Maya reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "You know what I learned? I thought being strong meant not needing help. But real strength is accepting help when it's offered and giving help when you can. That's what community means." "Is that what I should write about?" "Write about whatever feels true to you." Maya's phone buzzed with an email notification. She glanced at it. Message from the National Association of Veteran Healthcare Workers confirming her keynote speech at their annual conference next month. Topic: From Invisibility to Advocacy, One Veteran's Journey. She set the phone down and returned her attention to Lily, to homework and dinner preparations, and the mundane magic of ordinary evenings that had once seemed impossibly distant. 3 years after the grocery store rescue, Maya received an invitation to the White House. The president was signing new legislation protecting healthcare whistleblowers from retaliation, and Maya had been invited as a representative of the veteran healthcare workers whose advocacy had helped shape the bill. She stood in the East Room wearing her service uniform, medals displayed, watching as the president signed legislation that would protect future healthcare workers from the retaliation she'd endured. Cameras flashed, officials applauded, and Maya thought about all the nurses and doctors and medical staff who would benefit from protection she'd helped create through nothing more than refusing to accept injustice. After the ceremony, the president shook her hand personally. "Ms. Cross, your courage made this legislation possible. Thank you for your service, all of it." Maya accepted the thanks with the same calm she'd used accepting the State Excellence Award, the board positions, the promotions. She'd learned to receive recognition without diminishing it, to accept that her experiences mattered beyond just her own survival. On the flight home, Maya drafted an email to the 3 nurses who'd filed complaints after her at Riverside General. She'd stayed in touch with all of them, watched them rebuild their careers at hospitals that valued them properly. Legislation passed. "We did this. Thank you for standing with me." The responses came quickly, filled with gratitude and recognition that their collective refusal to stay silent had created change extending far beyond their individual situations. Back in Riverside, Maya returned to her office at Veterans Community Hospital and found a package waiting. Inside was a leather-bound journal with a note from Bishop. "For documenting the next chapter. You've shown what's possible when one person refuses to be invisible. Now show what's possible when that person has a platform. The world is watching. Make it count." Maya opened the journal to the first blank page and wrote a single line. "This is what happens when silence becomes speech, when invisibility becomes presence, when one person's refusal to accept injustice creates space for everyone else to demand better." She closed the journal and looked around her office. Diplomas and awards on the walls, photographs of the Veteran Services Wing opening, letters from people whose lives had been changed by programs she'd helped create. This was what victory looked like. Not perfect, not without scars, but real and substantial and earned through the kind of courage that came from simply refusing to give up. Her phone rang. Lily calling from school. "Mom, I got picked for the Academic Excellence program. They want me to apply for advanced placement next year." Maya felt pride surge through her chest. "That's wonderful, baby. You earned it." "We both did. If you hadn't fought for that scholarship, I wouldn't have had the tutoring and resources I needed." Lily's voice carried understanding beyond her years. "You changed everything for us." After the call ended, Maya stood at her office window looking out over Riverside, the city that had tested her, broken her, and ultimately forced her to discover strength she hadn't known she possessed. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, exhausted and invisible and trapped in a life that ground her down daily. That woman would barely recognize the person she'd become, confident, empowered, using her voice to create change instead of staying silent to ensure survival. The journey from invisibility to advocacy hadn't been chosen. It had been forced on her by circumstances beyond her control. But what she'd done with that forced journey, that was entirely her choice. She'd chosen to fight, chosen to document, chosen to speak up when silence would have been easier, chosen to accept help when isolation felt safer, chosen to transform personal pain into systemic change. And in making those choices, she'd discovered something more valuable than any award or recognition. She'd discovered that one person refusing to accept injustice could create ripples that extended far beyond their individual circumstance. Maya picked up the journal Bishop had given her and wrote one more line. They tried to make me disappear. Instead, I became impossible to ignore. That's the power of refusing to stay silent. That's the strength they can't take away. She closed the journal, turned off her office light, and headed home to her daughter, to the life they'd built together, from the wreckage of what had been to the future that stretched ahead, bright with possibility, because Maya Cross had learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply refuse to disappear. And sometimes that refusal changes everything.